Today I'm joined by Ivan Salaverry, who's kind of a legend in the Pacific Northwest with the jiu-jitsu and MMA scene. So thanks for doing the show, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
And so how I like to run my show is as soon as we get started, I just like to give my guests an opportunity, kind of say who you are, where you came from, what your deal is, and then just take it from there. We have a lot to talk about.
Thanks. Yeah, my name is Ivan Salaverry. I'm an MMA fighter, a jiu-jitsu black belt. I've been doing this since the mid-90s. I'm under Marcelo Alonso affiliation, and I fought with AMC, with Matt Hume, and also with Maurice Smith.
Okay.
So that's my lineage.
Yeah. And you got, I mean, you were in MMA back in the day. Like the first wave of it, right?
Yeah, with Charlie Pearson over here in the Northwest. He was one of the pioneers that really kind of started the shows, the promotions, and really right at the turn of when the first UFCs came out, they started doing their fights.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So, and there, oh my God, he had them in all kinds of different places. You know, there were rink-a-dink little dojos or, you know, the Armory. That was a big famous one.
I fought in the Armory under Charlie.
Popping. Super popular.
Yeah, it was cool.
So, and also with at AMC itself, right? And then that's how the whole community kind of like came through. So from, at least from the AMC side, you know, we had, you know, Maurice, we had Josh Barnett, Benji Radich, Dennis Hallman, Jeff Munson, you know, a slew of fellas.
Yeah.
And the Japanese guys also that came through from Pride.
That's right. Matt Hume was really wasn't he, was he a judge over there?
He was a judge.
Got it. So he was connected with all those guys.
He brought over guys. He had a contract with Pride to train them over here to get them out of Japan, and we were trained with Shoji, Akira Shoji, Sakurai, Kao Uno. So it was cool. It was really cool. When you walked into the gym, you got nervous. It was solid fellas.
Yeah. No easy rolls.
No.
What? So how did you get into it initially then? Because I mean, back then, there was no TV shows, there was no UFC events. Like, what drew you to it, or how did you find it?
Like, I think like most guys, I think that I got, you know, just turned on by the first UFCs, and I saw somebody that looked like my dad, right? Hoist Gracie. He was this tall, thin Latin dude, and winning, you know, through, you know, basically grappling. And I'm a wrestler, so I came from a wrestling background, and I saw these moves being done through grappling arts, right? And he's submitting people, making them tap out uncle. And I was like, oh my God, I love this. This is amazing. This is the shit. How do I make it happen? And back then there was really barely anything here for jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, so that was 93, right?
Correct. But it was like a year later.
Okay.
Because the whole time I was like, how do I make this happen? How do I make this happen? Right? And so there was one guy that came out of the Machado brothers from California, Glenn Barber, and he had a school up in Aurora. And me and a few other guys went over there to train. And it was cool. It was cool. Unfortunately, that guy, you know, had like adult onset schizophrenia.
Oh, okay.
So he kind of like spiraled out of it. But Marcelo came in about a year later.
Got it.
Marcelo Alonso is, you know, he's a Carlson Gracie black belt. Amazing coach. He was, you know, the training coach for the Champion Factory of Carlson Gracie, right, where all the big studs over there.
And Marcelo Alonso is the jiu-jitsu OG for the Pacific Northwest.
Correct. Yeah, he came out here in the 90s and really taught us about jiu-jitsu. And you know, I mean, the passion and the history behind it came with that, right?
Yeah.
And you know, a lot of the jiu-jitsu guys now in Marcelo are like, oh yes, it's, you know, I mean, it's so nice to be with Marcelo. Marcelo's nothing like he was before. Yeah, like he used to torture us, and like, you know, I think that was a good thing for us, the beginners that started out there, and you know, from that came, you know, we had Rodrigo. Lopez came out of that crew. We had, you know, we had a bunch of guys that came out of that crew, and we were just chiseled in a different way, right? And it was cool. Marcelo gave us all these tricks and things that were like amazing, you know, that from jiu-jitsu. But I really wanted to do MMA. And you know, I trained with him, and I kept on asking him. I was like, "Yo, Marcelo, man, I really want to do MMA." He's like, yeah, no problem, Ivan, we'll do it. And he didn't come about it, right? And so eventually, and literally it took about a year, and I was like, hey, Marcelo, I need to go. I need to do MMA. That was my passion. I was just like crazy about it. And he's like, no problem, Ivan, you go, you know what I mean? You have my blessing. And I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, at least I had a blessing that he like let me go. And at that time, I was being recruited a little bit by AMC, which was amazing, right? And Matt Hume had his program over in Kirkland, and it was crazy cool. Walked in, and like I said before, it was like we had Josh Barnett, Dennis Hallman, Jeff Munson, Benji Radich, Riley, Aaron Riley from Indiana.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So and also we had the thing about it right then. It was just the beginning of the beginning. So we would also work with Charlie and his guys, right? They would come down and train. And there was other groups of people that would come through and train with us. And that was the beginning of mixed martial arts in the Northwest. You know what I mean? And it started slowly. But it was like small fights in these different gyms, either at Charlie's or at Maurice's or at AMC and other places. And then little by little it got bigger and bigger and bigger.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember Matt used to have the fights at the mall, the brawl at the mall.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I fought in one of those. So
that was afterwards. There was a whole bunch of other fights before.
Yeah,
that.
I'm sure. Yeah, I didn't get into that scene until it was like 2005.
Yeah.
So it was a decade after that. Yeah. You guys have been chipping away at it. So
and we were the first ones to get invited by the Prince at Abu Dhabi for the Abu Dhabi Championship.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it was. I went there in '99, if I remember correctly, and there was a few of us went there the year before, and then Munson just took over in the early 2000s and stuff.
That's right.
So
I remember that. Yeah. So yeah, Abu Dhabi. I mean, and now that's considered like the most prestigious award in grappling that there is.
Well, now you have these massive qualifiers all around the nation and stuff. So. It's amazing. Back then, it was an invitation.
Got it.
And it was a small group of people that the Prince really liked, from different parts of the world. So you had a group of people from, Japan or Russia, the United States, and then a shitload of Brazilians, like from all different factions.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So then you started training with Matt Hume and then just started taking whatever fights were available? Because there probably wasn't a lot back then, or was there?
Well, there was a circuit, right? So there was a circuit of fights, especially for amateur fights, and then from there also came about the pro, semi-pro type of situation, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of times you'd have these cards that were amateur and pro, which is amazing, really, for any fighters that you want to have a bunch of fights. When you're ready to transition with a pro, you transition to pro, right? There isn't really a set situation where you go, okay, now
ready.
I'm pro. No,
yeah,
you figure it out and you talk with your coach, and then you go, okay, now I'm gonna go pro. But then your record really counts.
So is that kind of what the difference is? Like, being an amateur allows you to gain experience, but it's not really on the record.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not, at least at that time, it wasn't. It was the Wild Wild West.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it wasn't really something like, set in stone, and there wasn't big websites on, okay, this is your amateur record, this is your pro record. There wasn't that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and it was shady. What
do you mean?
Like some promotions, like we've had situations where we had a promotion in Idaho. Matt, Josh, me, and a few other guys literally traveled all the way to Idaho, and there was no card. Right? And so things like that, and or else they were like really rinky-dink places. Dennis Hallman used to have a traveling cage. It was crazy. He would go into different bars and taverns, right, and put up his cage, and he'd have like these challenge matches in the bars. It's just crazy stuff. And so that was part of that. Yeah, that was part of the MMA community back then. You know what I mean? So it was great. Yeah.
So then, I mean, I think everybody remembers like some of your fights from the UFC. What was that journey like? Just starting at rink-a-dink shows in Western Washington to then getting invited to the big stage.
Well, like anything else, I think that most fighters first accumulate a few fights professionally in the area.
Mm-hmm.
Once you like win a belt, you know what I mean? Some kind of a belt, a regional belt, you start traveling to other promotions and start challenging for their belts. So that's what I did. So I won over here locally. Then I went over to Hook and Shoot. I don't know if you remember the Hook and Shoot over in Indiana, and I won their belt. Then in California, Northern California, I had the IFL, their IFL back then. I forgot what the abbreviation stand for. But,
okay, before the team IFL,
correct.
A different thing. Okay,
and I won that belt. And then also in Hawaii, I fought in Hawaii a little bit, the Super Brawls. I don't know if you remember that.
Yep, I do.
So that allowed me to have a little base that was outside of just very small promotions. And once I won the Hook and Shoot belt, right? That's when I was asked by the UFC to come through, which was amazing. It was like, oh my God, I got the call.
I bet. Dude, yeah. What was that like? Because that was what, 2007 or something?
No,
2001?
Yeah, 2001, 2000. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It was.
That's right. You're old school.
Yeah. So yeah, it was nerve wracking because my first guy that I got bouted with was Andrei Semenov.
Mm-hmm.
Andrei Semenov just beat Almeida.
Ricardo Almeida?
Almeida. And knocked him out. So they were basically kind of like feeding me to him. You know what I mean? And I was like, oh no, fuck.
So you knew that, like,
yeah. And I was like, no, fuck that. No, you know what I mean? This is my chance. This is my chance for my dream.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and it was cool because the guy in the Hook and Shoot promotions kind of got me in there. Miguel Iturrate is one of the co-promoters in that, and who's Chilean like me.
Okay.
And he's like, Ivan, read this. And he gave me this book about Russian culture. And I was like, okay. I was like, fucking super thick. And I'm reading through it. And basically it's like the attrition of what Russian people have gone through, right?
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? From the revolution, the World War II and all these things. Like, and I took, why'd you give me this? You want to scare me or something? It's like, no, this is, you got to understand that this guy's really hard, right? Really hard. And I'm like, okay. So I'm training my ass off for this guy. You know what I mean? It's like, he's not going to beat me. He's not going to beat me. Forget this. And it was crazy cool to be in the UFC, right? Because it was that high level, right? This is the epitome of where you want to be at as a fighter. And it was scary as hell, right? It was Shreveport, Louisiana, right? And, I introduced myself to Andre when we were, being, escorted into the little press conferences and stuff. And that was crazy at first. Press conferences, right? People, lots of people from, around. That didn't happen locally. That, you know what I mean? That's just a different environment than local fights. Luckily, you know what I mean? I was able to, fight really well. And, I was able to use my striking and my grappling to beat Andre. And that's when it just like, it took off, you know what I mean? And I was like, wow. And I was when I won, I was in shock, and I won, and they took me in the back, and I started crying, and I was like, "Why am I crying?" And it was so much emotion. There was so much invested into this fight, and for all those years that I was like, "I'm gonna be in the UFC. I'm gonna be in the UFC," that it was a waterfall of emotion.
You got that call, and then you finally made it happen. Yeah. Wow, that's so cool, man. And how did you win that fight?
I had him in the frontside crucifix, right? What they call the Salaverry move, right? It was a really frontside crucifix, and I ground and pounded him.
Okay. So I mean, you said you grew up wrestling, and then you found jiu-jitsu.
Malik Terrace, baby.
Yeah, nice. Was Matt Hume where you started striking at, or did you have a striking background
pretty
too?
Much, yeah. Well, I had Shotogan. My uncle was a black belt Shotogan karate instructor. And so when I was young, I did that with him. But I mean, it really didn't carry over in that sense. I mean, my real pugilism, my real striking forte came from Matt Hume and Maurice Smith.
Got it. And would you say, I mean, that was kind of the generation where guys were coming up now that were good everywhere, right?
That was the intent.
That's what I'm saying. I feel like you were kind of one of like that generation of like, oh, you don't know where this guy's going to be good or where he's going to take me because you had tools everywhere.
Correct.
Like for a long time in the MMA scene, it's like striker versus grappler. Yeah. Or you know what the guy's going to bring.
My generation was the cusp of that. So for a while there was like Maurice was famous, being a striker, sprawl and brawl.
Yeah.
Right? And if he got taken down, he'd strike him, hold him, and then they could stood up and he'd work his striking. For us, it was really, let's make sure that this time around, as far as the American fighter, that we were very well versed in everything. So we knew takedowns, we knew striking, we knew ground, right? And we weren't going to be overwhelmed by the Brazilians or, you know what I mean, by, you know, Russian takedowns or whatever it may be. That back then it was a kind of like they pitted fighter from this country or this style versus this country versus that style.
Yeah.
Right? So we really wanted to be well-rounded. Our big rivalry was the Militich camp.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they were amazing, right? Those guys were really cool. And they were, you know, they pit us up all the time, you know, together. You know, Josh, they pit him up against Silva, right? Dennis versus Matt Hughes, right? Nobody knows this, but Dennis Hallman from AMC beat Matt Hughes twice.
Yeah. I remember that. Yeah. And he submitted him twice, right? Was it rear naked jokes?
Put him to sleep once, and then subbed him to sex.
That's right.
The second time, yeah.
Yeah, and then you just hear what happened to Pat Miletich with all the cancel culture bullshit going on. Man,
it's tragic, man. What's happening right now is madness.
It is
madness.
I mean, so what's the organization that he was a commentator for?
RFA, if I'm correct, LFA or RFA. Some one of the LFAs or RFA.
Yeah, and they fired him for attending the Trump rally.
The Trump rally, correct.
And it's like...
Did he go to the Capitol at all?
I have no idea the details, but anybody that... And I don't know Pat Miletich personally at all, but I mean, you only have to listen to him speak for 5 minutes, and you know he's a good-hearted, grounded person. Like, he wasn't there doing anything crazy. You know, like, get the fuck out of here.
Well, I think the whole thing was just so blown out of proportion. I mean, just you look at what, you know, AOC was talking about, and she wasn't even in the building.
She wasn't even
like
there.
That's madness to me, that this person who has so much clout in American politics is literally lying. To create a scenario that wasn't even there.
And then once she's caught lying, it's all good. No big deal. Like, if you're in a position like that and you get caught blatantly lying just to incite drama and incite hatred, you should be out. You know?
It's amazing to me, especially because I'm an immigrant, right? I'm a Latin immigrant that came here. I put my little name in the paper, you know, stood in line basically, and then got my papers. And so it's amazing to me that there's such hatred towards patriotism, love of the country, conservatism, right? Things that are basically like bringing back love of the country. And when you have such a push towards socialism and leftism, which to me is abhorrent, right? Coming from Chile, like that, you know, leftism and socialism is disgusting to me, right? As a business owner, that's disgusting to me. You know what I mean? It's just crazy that the United States is veering in that direction so strongly and putting so much hatred connotation towards a patriot or somebody who loves his country or loves the Constitution or loves capitalism. It's backwards land.
Yeah, and if you stand up or have an opinion that deviates from the narrative that's being force-fed to everybody, they just label you with all these key triggering words: racist, sexist, homophobe, and like, there's no basis for any of that. But that's what we're finding. No matter who you are, what you're back, like you're a perfect example. And that's a big reason I wanted to have you on the show, is because I follow you on your social media and you don't let anything slide. You don't let anything slide. If people say shit that you disagree with, you let them know why, and you let them know how wrong it is. And I was like, okay, Ivan, everybody knows Ivan for his MMA career, but this dude is a fucking patriot. And he's a business owner, and you're in the belly of the beast, downtown Seattle.
Downtown Seattle, man. Left as Mecca. It's crazy. My brother, it's crazy to me what's going on. And it's too easy for right now for opposing forces to just name call. It's too easy. You're Nazi. It's like, yeah, are you crazy?
I know.
Are you, just that term alone, and it doesn't become anymore about discussing an argument. It basically becomes defending yourself that you're not a Nazi. How it's backwards.
Yeah, and how many people do you know that are Nazis? Like, I don't know any. You know,
but it's crazy. That's what I have arguments all the time. I'm like, how many neo-Nazis you see walking around in Seattle?
Yeah.
I mean, how many KKK members do you know in Seattle or in Washington? Are you crazy? And especially like after this, this summer with the George Floyd protest, right? They were talking about defunding the police. Are you crazy? Seattle's got the most diverse, highly educated police force in the nation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
The top ranking person is African American female, or she was.
Yeah.
Before she got canceled herself.
What oppresses you about Seattle police? Are they brutalizing people? No, not even close. The Seattle Police Department, has been on top. Leaders in the nation, right, to cut back any kind of situations that might be controversial in any which way, right? And the truth of it is that the Seattle doesn't need less police; it needs more police, especially now, right? Crime rates out the yin yang, right? You're talking about assaults, right? Robberies, rape, you name it. It's skyrocketing right now, right?
So are they still pushing that bullshit forward? Because I know they wanted to cut the police force by a certain percentage, but I've also heard that data is already starting to be compiled that it's like, oh, wait, the less resources we give law enforcement, the more crime goes up, which doesn't take a fucking scientist to figure that out. But for whatever reason.
Amazing.
Yes, I know it's shocking, right?
Wow. My brother, I don't really know because they try, but at the same time, they're not able to really engage in that, right? Meanwhile, I think that there's two things. One is that they're kind of blaming it on COVID, so they're not arresting, they're not prosecuting, they're not convicting, right? In that situation, you have also a massive amount of what they call homelessness, which is not homelessness.
It's drug addicts.
It's drug communities.
Yes, that's exactly right.
So
and someone that was a police officer down here, I can confirm that 100%.
Yeah.
Anytime we're dealing with a transient complaint, it's drug related. They're all addicted to drugs.
Correct.
And
or mental illness, which can be.
But 9 times out of 10, the mental illness is a byproduct of years of addiction.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, you saw what the Washington State Supreme Court announced. What was it, like literally like 48 hours ago, that they're not going to prosecute for drugs anymore.
Correct.
And it's like,
it's a free for all.
It's a free for all. Yeah. And here's the thing, like as a conservative, and I lean pretty libertarian on a lot of things, is like, you go do you, right? If you, whatever you want to put in your body, whoever you want to have sex with, like you go do you. It doesn't bother me. But once it starts affecting other people, starts affecting your community, well, now we should have a problem with that. And man, driving down here, because we're downtown, if you're just listening, we're in Ivan's Academy right now, which is downtown Seattle. Driving down here, every time I come to Seattle, the tent cities are bigger.
It's you don't understand. It's a huge community underneath the bridges, underneath the freeways. Every park has, at the very least behind me in the Denny Park, 60 tents.
Yeah.
Right. Where kids are supposed to be playing.
That's right.
Where moms and dads are supposed to be able to take their kids, have picnics, right?
There's needles everywhere.
There's needles. There's people. They're just, it's like the zombie land out here. It's crazy.
Human feces.
Yeah.
Like,
and the city's not doing anything. That's what bothers me to all heck is like, why is the municipality not doing anything for the citizens of this city?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's crazy. Why are they not doing anything to control this like madness? You know?
And so that's what I was going to say. It was like the Washington State Supreme Court just basically decriminalized drugs. And the problem is the biggest that it's ever been. Yeah. We're not in a headspace to be able to say, hey, guess what, guys? Now it's a free for all, because it's already been a free for all. But what you find when you make these big changes in how you can actually enforce the law, what it does is it calls people that are addicted from all over the country.
Yeah.
And so you can ask any police officer, half of the people that you deal with, more than half, probably 75%, are from different states because they know these sanctuary cities. I go to Seattle, I go to San Francisco.
Seattle.
Yeah, that's right.
That's straight.
And so what you're doing is you're not only perpetuating the problem within your own community, but they're growing it. And it's clear as day. I mean, you as a business owner can see it. I, who was a police officer, can see it. So is it just pure stupidity, or is it like a nefarious agenda? Because they're rotting the cities from the inside.
Brother, that is the $1 million question right there. What is behind this? Because for me, I find it in three different levels, right? I find it that a lot of these transients that are really are from drug communities in the city, plus this constituency of leftist, chaotic uprising from Antifa, BLM, that literally for this COVID situation came in and under the guise of protest, destroyed businesses, small businesses that were already under lockdown, that were paying rent, not being able to make money off of the their services, and broke into their storefronts. How much more does the business owner in Seattle need to get kicked, right? Yeah. And then, unfortunately, the city's bureaucratic entities not doing anything about it, right? So all the council people, right, are literally against enforcement of the laws in this city. The mayor calling it the summer of love when they literally took over a 6-block quadrant in Seattle.
Yeah,
madness.
And young kids were dying in there. You know what I mean? Like, I think two or three.
There was three
killed.
Yeah, three got killed. I don't know how many assaults
and
how many rapes,
all that. Yeah.
It was the reflection of that situation, right?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
for me, when people are like, oh, they were doing protests, no, it wasn't. You know what I mean? And on top of that, the closures also, benefited who? The big conglomerates. I love Amazon as far as because literally I service them and as far as my gym, but they made out like bandits, right? Yeah. Microsoft made out like bandits. Facebook made out like bandits. All these big conglomerates, Costco, Home Depot, Walmart, they made it like bandits, and they destroyed the small businesses. 50% of Seattle restaurants have gone bankrupt. Beat that with a bat.
Yeah, think about that. And I mean, we touched on that before we started recording. And you take however many restaurants went under, and like we said, now you take 5 employees, 10 employees, however big it is, some of them more than that, and then their families and their children and their children's education, their children's ability, their ability to feed their children, ability to pay their mortgage. Like, the ripple effect goes on and on and on and on. And dude, we're not going to see the effects of 2020. We're not going to fully understand it for a generation.
And the question, where, from who did this start from? What is and it's nefarious. It really is.
It has to be.
Yeah, because
it has to be.
It came about very well organized. You know what I mean? And to me, that was the big situation, especially with the situation that happened in Minneapolis. It was tragic. It was really tragic what happened. But then what I noticed that it was a situation that, it was seen on Facebook, right? It was like, oh my God, he was there 10 minutes, 9 minutes with his knee on his back. Man, that's ugly. Then I was like, let me look at the situation. Let me see the whole thing. So I saw the whole arrest process. It was a half hour of an arrest process. So unfortunately, what they found out is that first, this guy was going out there and going to a store using counterfeit money, right? And so the storefront called the police, and they tried to arrest him. Yeah. Right. And within the arrest process, he was high as balls, okay, on fentanyl. That is what he was talking about. He couldn't breathe, and he was just being high the whole time. Yeah. Right? And they were trying to arrest him. If you really see the whole arrest process, it's long. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it was a situation like, what's going on? It wasn't like this, brutalization of just like, let's just hurt this person. No, not even close.
Well, and I think an important thing that nobody ever mentions in any of these arrests where people die, no one ever mentions personal responsibility. Like, and I've talked about it a lot. That cop had his knee on his neck, and that's not how police officers are trained. And once you're in handcuffs, you're not supposed to apply force. There were some things that he did that were outside of policy, right? Yeah. But, or also a violation of law. But this is what I tell everyone. The guy's in jail right now.
Yep.
What else? How else do you want the system to acknowledge
that true.
That what you were upset about was incorrect? He's in jail right now.
And he's going to go through the court system, the process. But beyond that, the fact is that they created this whole situation in the whole nation of protest that turned extremely violent.
Yeah.
Right. And they destroyed billions of dollars of destruction.
Yep.
Right. But
cops getting
hit
with bricks.
But that was created. Yeah. If you look at how Facebook was pushing that, it is crazy, right? It was just like they saw the Floyd video, and then little by little they showed other situations of police brutalizing other people from years, right? So it was an accumulation. It was a collage of and they just kept on showing that, and I'm sure that motivated people to go, quote unquote, protest that really turned violent.
No, of course it did.
That to me was like, man, this is nefarious. This is beyond just, you know what I mean? Oh my God, people are just spontaneously doing this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This was a push, you know what I mean? And in that sense, I felt really bad because I was here in my business right here while the protest was going on, right? And I was one of the few guys. I'm going to be like those Koreans in LA.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to be with my rifle. I'm going to be with my rifle, my pistol, and I'm going to protect my shit. You know what I mean?
And anyone that thinks you should do otherwise has their head up their ass. You know what I mean? Yeah. This is your life's work right here.
And I was super surprised that there weren't more people like me.
Dude, I've talked about that a lot. I am disappointed in, like, if you look back in 2020, I'm disappointed in the American public's spirit of like defiance and resolve and grit. Like, we're not pushovers. This country was founded on telling people to fuck off. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And as soon as kind of you get put in a corner, everybody just kind of put their hands up and gave up, I feel like. And it hurt my heart to watch. I saw it with both the public just allowing their businesses to just be ravaged by these savages, and then also with a lot of the law enforcement, because law enforcement was put in a bad spot, right?
But told to stand down.
Told to stand down. Yep, told to stand down. And I just feel like, man, I expected more from people, you know?
My job was to protect these windows.
Exactly.
Right. So my thing was like, don't hurt my property.
Yep.
Right. If you're going to hurt my property, we're going at it. Thank goodness they didn't come down here. And I'm in the middle of Amazon campus. So I was like, that's interesting. My friends and I put our rifles down. We put our stuff down. We went walking. Right. And I was like, okay, we went through close to like Pike Place Market, Third Avenue area. And there was a protest. Oh, you know, I can't breathe, BLM, blah, blah, blah. Cool. Protest is good. You know what I mean? You're allowed to do that. Walked around the corner. Holy shit. It was chaos. All these motherfuckers just throwing bricks and getting into fucking retailers, grabbing it and going. And the police were not doing anything. That blew my mind.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And I was like, later on, I was like, what happened? And they were told to stand down. And I know that they could have crushed this in a snap. In a snap, they could have crushed this. They could have arrested all these guys that were causing all this damage, right? At least gotten some information from where it's coming from, but they did nothing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I can tell you, the patrol level officer wanted to go out there and stop it. I'm sure you have lots of police officers that train here, right?
Yeah,
so you probably heard about it all the time.
Yeah, they were frustrated as hell.
Yeah, frustrated as hell because not only in this
the lack of support from the city,
the lack of support. You know? And here's the thing. It's not like they asked those cops to go out there and stand down and they just got to hang out and watch this unfold. No, they're being targeted. They're being actively targeted because I had buddies that worked the riots and you got people throwing Molotov cocktails, throwing bricks. Yeah. I talked to a guy 2 days ago that said his partner got smashed in the face with a rock the size of a grapefruit. And I'm like, in any use of force scenario, from when I was in the military to when I was a police officer, if someone's throwing a rock at your head that's the size of a grapefruit, you shoot that person. Yeah. But no, they couldn't do anything. And so they're going to put them out there not only tell them to stand down, but put them in a position where they may get hurt or worse. Like, I look back on all this. Thank God I got fired when I did. You know what I'm saying, bro? Because there's no way.
Yeah.
One of two things would have happened if they put me in that situation and said, don't do anything. I would have done something and got fired for it, or I would have just turned in my badge and my gun and be like, dude, I have fucking 3 small kids to go home to. I'm not playing your guys' political games with my safety and my well-being, you know?
Well, the tragic part about it is that they literally gave up a 6-block area to this situation, right? And on top of that, they gave up a precinct. You know what I mean? And, and that to me was like, why would the mayor ever do something like that? Why would they just like, just get on their backs and just like, okay, let's just do whatever you want, right? And that is the question. Why? Why did she do that? Why did she allow this to happen, right? What was behind it? And obviously, in like 6 weeks, it was horrible.
Yeah.
The outcome was bad. The funny thing about it is that they try to do the same thing in certain other areas, right? So, these groups of BLM and Tifa try to push over to like Snohomish, or they try to do this where I'm at in Covington, right?
Snohomish is where I'm at.
Yeah, and so I got friends at Snohomish, right? So
it lasted a night.
Yeah, and basically the same thing. They went over there, and especially in Covington, they did the same thing. They went in there in the daytime, and we were all rifled up just to protect we have a little strip mall area, right? So we have a little Costco, we have a little Walmart, Safeway, right? Things of that nature. It's ours, right? In a sense, like the neighborhood, right? And the protesters came in and they were like, oh, protest. And we were like, cool, protest. You can do that. That's your right. Please do so. A few hours later, holy crap. There's a whole group of guys came in, all ghetto ass kids that were coming in with a U-Haul. And I was like, what? And there was a few of us in that parking lot. There was a few of us over in Walmart, and there was a few of us in Costco. Just in case, right? They came in, they started getting crazy, yelling, blah, blah, blah. And we're just there with our rifles. Don't touch the windows. Don't touch the windows. Just be cool. You know what I mean? And they yelled at her. Ended up, they got back in their cars, took the truck, and left.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Shocking.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And in Snohomish, even more so. I heard that there was many more fellas over there that were armed and saying, no, this is not going to happen to our neighborhood.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You have the right to protest, but you don't have the right to destroy.
Well, and here's another interesting thing that's just coming down the pipe now. Did you see that in Washington State, there's legislation being pushed forward that you can't bring a rifle to any type of protest? Like, because they don't want citizens to defend themselves. Like, it runs deeper than this, And
they'll chisel away at all your constitutional rights. This state is crazy like that. You know what I mean? And there needs to be pushback. You know what I mean? It's sad, but it is the state of Washington is so left and so anti-constitutional in so many ways. It's scary.
It is,
and there's a massive amounts of people that are moving out of the state.
Well, and I'll tell you, I was on the verge because I have friends in Idaho, and I was on the verge of saying maybe we just pack up and go to Coeur d'Alene. But then I thought, you know what? I was born here. My family's here. My house is here. My business is here. Why should I have to leave because this opposing force is trying to take away my rights and chisel away at what's mine?
Yeah.
And so I'm of the mindset now, because I actually just got, me and my family just got 30 acres out in the woods.
Congratulations.
Right?
That's beautiful.
So, but it's in Washington, you know? So we're going to try and make our little off-grid place.
Yeah.
If shit goes to hell, we can have that to fall back to. But I've come to the determination, I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And guess what else? I'm not turning in my rifles.
Yeah.
And I'm not turning in my 30-round magazines. And I think it's time for people to be open and vocal about it. Yeah. Like, you want to fucking chip away and try and take away our constitutional rights? No, I'm right here. Yeah. And they're not going anywhere. And they're going to do the same thing they did for all the COVID bullshit. They're going to try and turn law enforcement against citizen, because it's going to be put in the laps of law enforcement. Hey, this guy refuses to register his rifle.
Correct.
You know?
Go get him.
Go get him.
Yeah.
Can you imagine being a cop and getting that call? Oof. God,
Horrible.
First of all, it's outside of what they have the authority to enforce. It's outside of any type of jurisdiction that they're supposed to be enforcing the law within. But not only that, that's a fucking dangerous ass call.
Yeah.
Because if people come to my house saying, turn in your rifles, that's the point where it's going to be on.
Correct.
And it has to be. And not only does it have to be because I believe it's the right thing to do, but dude, what kind of world are we leaving our children if we just bow down and let all these fucking dictators do whatever they want? You know?
No, I feel the same way. I mean, I'm not leaving Seattle.
Yeah.
I'm going to be here, right? And so you can protest all you want. You can try to, riot around me if you want to see what happens. But you're absolutely right. You know what I mean? It's a situation. I'm not giving up my weapons.
Yeah.
I'm not giving up my rights. I'm going to still be here. So what's going to happen? Is the authorities going to do anything about it? I don't know. They may. Good luck.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
luck.
It's gonna be very, very difficult.
You want to know
what's behind it?
Yeah.
We really need to start looking at like who's behind this, for what reason.
Well,
right?
I mean, it's exactly like what we talked about again before we started recording, is that COVID was weaponized almost immediately, right? To fuck our economy up, fuck all the businesses up, take a thriving economy, take an America.
Booming economy. It was beautiful.
And everybody wasn't freaking out about racism, and everyone didn't hate the police, and they jumped at an opportunity to absolutely turn things upside down.
Right.
And if you don't think that wasn't done to get Trump out of office, you're not being realistic with yourself.
Not even close.
That was a calculated move. And then all this other stuff is just it's just the fallout. Like, there's a reason why every city that was burned to the ground is a democratic leftist city. You know, they wanted to stoke the fire of chaos, because what that showed the American people is that this country under Donald Trump is dangerous and it's out of control.
But that's the whole point. That people don't realize the detail in this is that most of the destruction that was happening came from leftist, like literally decades of democratic rule.
Yeah, of course.
Right? Minneapolis, Seattle, Portland, LA, San Francisco, Chicago, New York.
Yeah.
I mean, like you go down the line and they've been, generationally democratic. So it's crazy that there is this Trump's America causes. It's not even close. There was such momentum behind them, and it's tragic because it would have been nice to see another 4 years of this, great economic boom just transitioned over to his next administration.
Yeah, and so you have politicians, I should say, that are willing to destroy people's lives and their livelihoods just to play this game of dirty politics. Crazy. And that's where we're at right now, And then, dude, after them stoking the fire and fanning the flame of protest and violence, then on January 6th, we had a conservative movement where some people went in the Capitol, and it was just
let in. Yeah. Please. There's so many times that I look at the video and the police are letting them in, and they're walking and taking pictures and stuff like that. It's like, this is the corniest insurrection ever.
Yeah. Dude, I've talked about it. It's like, if that was a violent mob of people that wanted to storm the Capitol with an insurrection in mind,
correct,
they would have been coordinated. They would have blocked off the exits.
Correct.
They would have had simultaneous entry points. Like, it doesn't take any kid that was in the infantry that can understand how to take a building down. It's not hard. You can learn that shit playing Call of Duty, right? There was no tactics being employed. Yeah. It was just a mob mentality. It was a bunch of people that were fired up, and they walked in the Capitol. Yeah. And then what do we see? We see these politicians cowering and fleeing and
it creating more than it was. That's the thing about it.
That's what I'm saying.
Like, when you have AOC saying that Senator Cruz tried to murder her. Are you crazy? Hyperbolic as heck is that, right? And they're trying to get the impeachment going, and it was silly. People knew that nothing's going to happen from this impeachment.
Yeah.
But it's just hype. It's just like, they just try to create this momentum that the right wing, right, is supposed to be like this new terrorist group in America, which is absolutely untrue. It's, so far from that, it's crazy. But at the same time, you look at it and you start thinking about okay, what now? To me, at least in my opinion, I think that this election got stolen. Mm-hmm. Right. I think that all these mail-in ballots was a horrific situation for, you know what I mean, our election. The Carter Baker, they had the Carter Baker situation that basically looked into what would cause election fraud, and mail-in ballots would be one of the biggest causes that would create mail-in fraud. And so it's not a surprise that this happened, right? But because of COVID and behind COVID, they were able to implement this, right? And what bothers me to all heck, how come it wasn't looked into, right? Why didn't we look into all those affidavits? Why didn't we look into the Dominion the voting machines? Why didn't we look into all these different laws that got changed overnight?
Well, it's because everybody's bought and paid for. You know, it seems like they are at every single level. And even a lot of the members of the Republican Party were like too timid to stand up and say, hey, something's not right here. And here's the thing. If it was stolen or if it wasn't stolen, okay, if we would look into the things that you spoke about, then time would tell, right?
Thank you.
So why?
Prove to me. It's all these things that were put forth that they were incorrect. That to me was a travesty that didn't happen for such a contested election.
And so, such an important election. And so if all of these things that people on the right were concerned about, if the left was confident that, no, you guys are crazy, mail-in ballots, there was no issues, the Dominion software, there was no issues, then why wouldn't they be open to showing and investigating it?
Correct.
You know,
litigating it. That's the whole thing, is that also that the courts didn't really step in and litigate this so we can go through it, right? Let's comb through these accusations or allegations and really go from there. Nothing of that happened. It was just basically shut off. No. And to me, it was amazing. And
it is.
And that, you know, all of a sudden you had people that were upset and surprised. We had, seriously, that January 6th situation was the supposedly, unquote unquote, the right wing protest, right? We had one protest that they literally made it out to be like we terrorized, you know, the Capitol, which is incredibly false.
And they're literally talking about putting together like lists of people that voted for Trump, anyone that supported him.
Goodness.
And it's like I remember I was watching CNN one night and they're saying the people that voted for Donald Trump are the same people that stand with the KKK and stand with the Nazis. And it's just like
name calling. That's what it is.
Just inciting fear and continuing to divide and like I said, fan the flame of hatred. And dude, all of my friends are conservative people. I have some that are liberal, but the overwhelming majority are conservative people. And I don't know one person that like, nobody cares if you're gay. Nobody cares what religion you are.
We're so beyond that.
That's what I'm saying. You know, nobody cares about that stuff.
And to tell the truth right now, it's what has happened is that the Democratic Party has gone so far left, right? So even if you're Republican, a moderate Republican, you're looked at as an extremist. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? It's crazy, and it's you know, you wonder why, but I honestly think that there's a big push of leftism and communism and socialism and this situation that they want to make people hate capitalism, the opportunity to go forward in this country was capitalism. You know what I mean? So
I mean, what do you think? There's a part of me that thinks like these political elite that have worked their way up to the top by creating all these issues, it perpetuates a constant state of fear and a constant state of divide. And as long as all the American people hate each other and think everybody's out to get each other, they remain up here at the top with their private jets and their wealth. I mean, you got congressmen that are living in mansions. So what is really going on? I think that's a big part of it. It's almost to the point where like our political elite, it's almost like a form of modern day royalty, you know?
Yeah. And I think it's in cahoots. And let me give you my thought on this, that with all honesty, that there is a full circle of also these big elites that own these conglomerates, right? So when you're talking about, you know, Bezos and Gates and guys of that nature that are owning these big globalist corporations, right? They push for this. They don't want a strong nationalistic push. They don't want the nation to be closer together for the sake of protecting itself. They don't. They don't want borders to be closed and to be tight. Right? They don't want our manufacturing to be here. They want it to be somewhere else where it'd be a lot cheaper. Right? They want cheaper labor force in this country coming in from outside of this country itself. So within that is where I'm opposite of that. And I want there to be a situation where our borders are controlled for the sake of even cheap labor. No, cheap labor should be given to at least the opportunity for work for that cheap labor should be given to Americans, right? We should use our natural resources, our oil, our coal, our gas, right? We should bring back manufacturing to this country. Right, and that is what I enjoyed, listening to Trump and going, we're going to bring that back, right? And I wanted that to happen, and I'm highly unfortunate that this supposed pandemic, right, all of a sudden shut us down, and we literally had medical socialism in an instant.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That all of a sudden, if you're not masked up and you're not 6 foot ruling and you didn't close your business, you are the fault.
Yeah.
Right.
And you don't care about people's grandmothers.
Yeah, correct. And what we're finding out little by little, it's the opposite, right? So right now there's investigations with Inslee, Cuomo, and the other governor over in Michigan that they're the ones that allowed COVID patients in elderly homes, right? Killing a lot of elderly, right? Which was the majority of people that died in COVID related deaths.
Of course.
So
and that's
it's backwards land. It's crazy.
And every time I talk about this, I like to emphasize on the point is like guys like you and I who run gyms and a lot of people that put their trust in us for their health and their fitness and their mental well-being. Like the last thing we want to do is hurt anybody or not show compassion to people. Like nothing could be further from the truth. Like the guys I know that are like wired like us, they're the first to like put it all on the line to defend people and help people. But because we wanted to keep our businesses open, we're pieces of shit. Yeah. And I mean, I don't know if you received any emails, any hate. I had people telling me like, oh, I'm going to kill your kids because
what?
Yeah, dude, because like of my stances, my position that I talked about, or because I don't believe in shutting my business down. And it's like, these people have bought off on this narrative to the point that they're offended for me simply running my business. And it's like,
I didn't get that because I think people know me just because I'm vulgar. You know what I mean? Because I don't take their shit. Fuck them. With all honesty. But this community that we have as far as mixed martial arts, jiu-jitsu, to me, I know that I'm a free man. Having this business, I'm a free man.
Yeah.
I can say what I want. I do what I want, right? I'm not a cog on the wheel. I don't go to HR if I cuss, right? It's none of that stupid shit. I'm a free man. I live
feels
free.
Fucking amazing.
It's awesome. You know what I mean? And also the culture that I create here is, fortunately, it's a situation that like if you put out the best that you can, right, and I put out the best that I can, somebody's going to win.
Yeah.
And somebody's going to lose.
Yep.
Those are great lessons in life.
Of course.
You know what I mean? So within that also is the camaraderie of men, right? Especially athletic men and women.
Yeah.
Right? But I'm like 95% men in my gym, right? So there's a camaraderie. And so when we're here and we beat the shit out of each other for an hour and a half, and all of a sudden afterwards we sit down in a pool of sweat and we start talking.
Yes.
Right? We start talking. We start talking about politics. You might have a different view than me. And guess what? We're going to argue. And that's the beauty of the gym.
Being face to face, though. Yeah.
Being face to face with a person that I love and I respect. And it could get heated. But we're going to have that conversation. And we're going to have that conversation with 20 guys.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And that was, to me, that's what our country was founded on, right? They could have done it in a tavern with a bunch of beer, right? And they could have had those conversations. But that's what we were having. And that's what COVID mandates limited.
That's right.
Right? They limited the fact that us gathering together,
right? Doing something healthy for that matter, right? And conversing. This is not right.
Yeah.
This is way too much for what it is. Why am I being closed when Costco's open? Why am I being closed when Home Depot's open? Those are the questions that I asked, some of my liberal friends, right? And it was like, oh no, they have these different protocols and yada, yada, yada. I was like, interesting. So you're telling me now that you just sweated that, right? And you just we just worked out like crazy, that you're not a better man for that, right? And so those are the different types of conversations that we'd have. But that was the important thing, is that we had those conversations in big groups, right? Whereas the state was telling me, no, you shouldn't even have those groups in your gym. You shouldn't have those conversations. You couldn't even go and have fellowship in a church, right? I'm like, what? These are the founding principles of our country. Gathering together, talking, saying what the hell you want, right? And going to church and conversing with people, right? And now they're trying to whittle away our Second Amendment. So first, second, this is madness was going on right here.
Yeah, and the thing is I mean, they're not our emperors. They're not our overlords. They don't have the authority to tell us we can or can't do these things. Yeah. Like, fuck you. Yeah. That was like, and again, like when this first kicked off, I think everybody was like, oh, what the hell's going on, And people were cautious and trying to figure it out. But as soon as you figured out that it was agenda driven and it wasn't for your safety, I opened my gym back up and I started training. And the thing is, it's just like you said, my gym, we run evening practice at 6 to 7:30. I'm usually not locking the doors till 8:15, 8:30 p.m. for that exact reason. Everybody gets everything that's off their chest. Everybody talks. Everybody converses. And it's like, once that's part of your life where you go to a facility, you exercise your body, and then you bond with this group of people, like you take that away, it's instantly something feels off.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but I have a very diverse group of guys, right? So we have points of view from all over the place. But going on your situation of the closures, I'm not very smart, right? In the sense, like I'm an ape, right? So
you and I both.
And so in that sense, I was like, okay, when this first happened, March, right? Because I got a bad flu, quote unquote flu, at the end of January. I was like, damn, I never get these. I was a hot mess. I was fevering, shaking, right? I all kinds of bad dreams. I was like, man, this is a bad flu. Got over on it. All of a sudden, the COVID situation was getting stronger and stronger, and it closes down for March, April, and May. Really strong mandate to close everything down. I didn't close down. Fuck them. Yeah. Right. Yep. So we had a crew of dudes. We plasticed everything up, and then we had a crew. We came in, we came out at the same time. It was super coordinated. It was awesome. Right.
Good for you, man.
And so
Monday,
Wednesdays, and Fridays, I was thinking to myself, okay, man, how is this happening? Is this really like this pandemic, like the bubonic plague? Fuck it, I'm going to go up the hill. So I went by myself every Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and Friday in Seattle, downtown Seattle. I would go over to 3 hospitals. I would go over to Virginia Mason. I would go over to Swedish, all right? And I would go over to Harborview, all their emergency rooms, all their triages. Every day for the 3 months every 3 days for the 3 months that this was going on, March, April, and May. Have pictures. Guess what?
Empty.
Yeah. Completely, utterly empty. The triage was empty. The emergency room was empty, right? So 3 hospitals, major hospitals in downtown Seattle, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Fridays was like packed back in the days, right? Harborview would be like packed, right? Empty. So for 3 months, and then in my little brain, I was like, no, this is crazy. Okay, this is not a pandemic. I understand that also that they were transitioning supposedly the COVID patients over to what do you call it? The word that they had. Oh my God, what was it called? They had a different area where they would have the COVID patients.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, and in that aspect also, looking back, and that they had the full-on hospital, the military hospital over in Soto, right? By the stadiums, right?
Empty.
So,
and I worked a shift. This was before I got fired. Yeah. I worked a shift at UW Medical Center, and they had a giant COVID tent. Like they had an outdoor COVID ward, so it could be separate from the facility. And I was talking to the doctors and nurses there, and they said we haven't admitted one person into the COVID tents. And then they also told me, because like not only did like businesses like ours get fucked over, but I was talking to the doctors and nurses when I was working that shift there, and they said all the elected surgeries gone.
Yeah.
Elective surgeries are gone. And
Testing.
That's the money maker.
Yeah.
Like a hospital at the end of the day, it has to operate.
It's a business.
Yeah, it's a business,
Yeah.
right? And so they said the ER drains our resources and our finances, and the OR is what creates wealth for the hospital. You have to balance those things. And they said they weren't willing to do that. And so when you're only operating your ER and your OR is closed, they said a bunch of our staff was put on furlough, not being paid. And it's like, you're telling me this is the worst pandemic in modern history, and we're sending our doctors and our nurses home because there's no work? Like, get the fuck out of here, dude.
The whole thing is still mind-boggling.
Well, now they're saying that
the numbers have dropped drastically.
Yeah,
Have you seen that? 70%.
Shocking.
After Trump leaves.
Yeah, who would have thought,
Yeah.
dude? But now they're saying that like this was the lowest flu season in modern history. Have you seen that?
I'm telling you, my brother, it's all
zero,
bullshit.
There's
It's
zero flu, or like 900 flu deaths this year. Or like, come on, guys.
It's all bullshit. To me, like when they start talking about the COVID death rate, right? Please separate if you died of COVID or with COVID, because they bundle them all in. And how many people had COVID and got over on it and never documented? How many masses of people got COVID? They didn't document it. They just stayed home. Fucking got over.
Probably both of us
by far.
Because I had a bad fever right around that same time too.
Yeah.
You know, and like, yeah. Of course that's what's happening. The craziest statistic about COVID for me is that the average age of death for COVID is somewhere in the 80s.
Yeah.
That's older than life expectancy.
Correct.
So like,
and take in consideration that any cold, any flu, any other disease could do the same thing, and that's and it just seemed like it that they just bundled all these reasons together, right, and created this monstrous number that scared people. Oh my God, so many thousands of people that died. It's like, wait a minute, thousands of people die all the time, right, in this country, right, and so and it's amazing that the flu disappeared this year because of it. You know what I mean?
And it's like, there are people that were at risk. There are people that it killed. No one's ever argued that that's not sad or tragic, or that we shouldn't protect those people. Like, if you want to think about what they could do with all the money and resources that they could have, if they would have kept the economy going and kept everybody in business, allowed people to say, hey, if you're over 75 years old, stay home, and the community is going to rally behind you, and we're gonna use the community to bring you food and leave it on your porch, and like we're gonna make this period of time as painless on our elderly as possible. Like,
but it was backwards.
Yeah, of course.
That's the thing about it, is that it was backwards. And when all of a sudden you hear about COVID patients being put into the elderly homes, that's mind-boggling to me. Yeah. And I think that Inslee should be looking at being in a court here very soon, hopefully.
Do you think any of these political elite, like Inslee or Cuomo, will ever have to answer for this stuff? I mean, I'm very hopeful, but if you look at how things play out, it's like they're
also
above the law.
How our state and our city is built, you know what I mean, with so many Democrats and so many leftists. I highly doubt it. I honestly think that this was, you know what I mean, a push, right, to really oust the ability for Trump to have his second administration. Yeah. Right. So in that, but at the same time, I look at what Trump did, and unfortunately, Trump also out-democrated the Democrats with how many trillions of dollars that he put into COVID, right? And also, like, he really couldn't do much. That's what the people don't understand. As a president, he doesn't have a governing ability to separate states. Yeah. The governors do, right? And so you start looking at how certain governors have mandated certain situations in their states, and you're seeing that most of the red states doing fantastic. Yeah. You know what I mean? You're looking at Texas, Florida, Tennessee, right? Idaho, the Dakotas. Amazing. Yeah. You know what I mean? In comparison, right? You have in New York, you know what I mean? Other places.
And the infection rate isn't that different. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like these states that just locked everything down and shut the businesses down and made everybody stay home. well, you didn't do very well because the proof's in the pudding now, you know? Yeah. And I mean, one of my best friends is a physician, and he's dealt with a lot of COVID patients because he went to New York, right? Yeah. And he even said, he goes, you can't stop a cold. Like,
impossible. It's already worldwide.
It's going to make the rounds. Yeah. And you can do what you can to protect yourself, but you can't stop the cold, you know? Like, we know someone else that's a teacher that now they open school back up, right? But the kids have to be social distance and they have to be masked. These are little kids. These are like second graders.
What's the recovery rate on that age?
Yeah, exactly. 100%, you know? But this is what the teacher said. She goes, all the kids in my class right now have runny noses and they have the sniffles because the cold's going around.
Yeah.
Oh, shocking. Yeah. They're wearing masks and they're social distanced, and a cold went through your classroom and they all got it.
Yeah. And they're breathing the same breath in that poor little mask. Poor guys, you know what I mean? It's horrible.
Yeah. You know? And so, like, do you run youth programs here?
I used to, not anymore.
Okay. Yeah. So our youth program is the biggest it's ever been because
there's nowhere to go.
There's nowhere to go.
Yeah.
And parents, like, all of their sports are shut down. Their schools are shut down. And my kids are still little. How old are your kids?
My youngest is 12.
Okay.
Excuse me, just turned 13.
Got it. Okay.
So 13 and 14 are my youngest right now.
Got it. So I have a 5, a 9, and an 11-year-old. Wow, and I was seeing how bad being removed from their peers, being removed from their athletics was affecting them. And so we opened our gym and opened our youth program, and it's just exploded.
That's awesome.
And it's, I've had so many parents are like, you have no idea what you're doing for my family. Like, my kids needed this. My kids missed their peers. They missed their athletics.
Imagine what they did to our society by putting the kids in the home, you know, going to school remotely, plus mom and dad working remotely, all in the same house all day long, every day. It's crazy.
It's not how people are wired, you know? And so, but I can tell you, like, I guess you try and look for the silver lining in anything, right? Is that the fact that I did refuse to acknowledge, and we were getting letters from LNI saying, "Oh, you can't do this, you can't do this." No one ever showed up to my gym, because if they did, I was ready for fucking combat to the death. Yeah. Like, I told my wife, I was like, if they try and come here and shut me down by force, I'm going to fight to the death.
Correct.
That's where I'm at. That's where my mindset is at, because this is what feeds my children.
Likewise.
Yeah.
Just to let you know, likewise, because for me, that the ability for the government to be that intrusive into my life, into my business, into my livelihood was crazy, right? Especially for a voluntary action. Right, I'm not forcing my members to be here.
That's exactly right.
You know what I mean? They want to be here because they want to be here. And I tell them, I tell them, like, hey, you might get COVID here.
That's exactly what I told them.
If I'm sweating in your mouth and you're sweating in my eye, guess what? We might be exchanging a few germs.
I told my team the same thing. I said, everybody here is adults.
Correct.
And so we actually opened the adult program, like you said, like right away. I was reluctant to open the kids program because I was like, okay, well, adults can make their own decisions, but I don't want to interject kids into this scenario quite yet, because people will fucking come down on me hard. Be like, oh, you know what? Like, you're having kids go in there and then they're going home and then they're seeing grandma. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to hold off on kids. But then when I started to see the effect that it was having on the youth, I was like, no, it's time to open kids again. And I've only had like 1 or 2 negative feedbacks on the youth program.
Oh.
This lady was like, I don't even know who she was. She called me and she goes, I want my kids in jiu-jitsu. I've heard really good things about your academy, but I went and looked at some of your social media and I see they're unmasked. And I said, yes, they are unmasked. I said, if you understand grappling and martial arts, it's not feasible to do jiu-jitsu with a face mask on. On top of that, I don't feel like that's not my place to tell somebody what to put on their face. And that's not what we're doing here. Correct. And she's like, well, I really want my kids in your program, but I would like you to implement a mask policy. And I said, again, like, you can't grapple with a mask on. Correct. And she goes, well, one picture I saw, all the kids were circled up around the coach listening to instructions. Couldn't they put masks on in between actually grappling? And I was just like, oh man. And the thing is, it's like, there's a part of me that wants to be like, fuck you, hang the phone up. But I try.
You do it nicely.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the only thing about
I try,
it.
because I mean, it's a professional. I try and be.
You're a very nice guy. You're a very nice guy. I'm not. in that way, I'd be like, you don't like how I run my business? Go fuck yourself. Okay, I don't care. Right?
Maybe I need to take some pointers from you, man. Because like,
I'm just saying that if the people that want to be here will be here.
Yeah,
the people that don't want to be here and are scared or nervous or whatever, don't be here.
Yeah.
At this moment, in this situation, at this time, I don't care. Right? I'm gonna have the people that I want here. Times are tough enough. They're definitely not paying me enough, right, for me to take the bullshit that COVID is handing out. Right? So.
Well, and again, you said before we started recording that like you took a big hit on memberships.
Huge.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But that's okay. But I'm not going to be, you know what I mean, tormented by a bunch of little Karens wanting to have 6 foot rules and mask. No way. I'm going to do jiu-jitsu the way I like to do jiu-jitsu.
Right.
I'm going to fight the way I like to fight. You know what I mean? So no one's going to dictate to me what I'm going to do in my own gym.
Man, I love it. And you've probably seen it here too. I'll have people walk in with their families and they're all masked up and then they'll look around and they'll realize, because we have CrossFit and jiu-jitsu. So downstairs is CrossFit, upstairs is jiu-jitsu. And we're doing the same thing with CrossFit. Come train. You don't have to fucking mask up. We're not playing these games anymore. Correct. And people will walk in and realize, oh, we're free here. And they'll take their mask off, they'll put it in their pocket, and they'll smile.
Say it again.
Yeah.
We're free here.
That's right.
Ain't that a mother? Right? That's amazing. Like, people don't realize that when they come in here, oh, I gotta take this fucking muzzle off.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I can breathe. I can talk to my buddy. I can hug him. I can hug my buddy. You know what I mean? And that is an amazing situation. Dude, the fact that I also opened up, you know, because I was pissed that they were fucking, you know what I mean, they were trying to take monies away from the SPD. The fact that I'm like, you know what, all SPD trains here for free.
Nice.
Fuck that. Get them in here, start training all day long if they want to. I'll open up the doors, whatever time that they want. Be here. And that situation also, I got a little flack from that. You know what I mean? From some of the
some of the defund the police people.
And you're very nice. You're very diplomatic. I was like, fuck you. You know
well, this is what those fucking people don't realize is if you think cops are bad guys and cops want to hurt you and cops want to kill you, what they don't realize is a cop that is trained and a cop that understands how to safely and technically effect an arrest. If he or she is proficient at those things, it's safer for the cop and it's safer for the suspect. So they want to act like training the police is a bad thing. And what they don't realize is a trained officer makes the entire community safer, both the shitheads that are out committing crimes and for the officers themselves, man.
I think I go a little bit more basic than that. The truth of the matter to me is that an officer that comes in here and is training on at least 3 days a week, right? He's going to have the ability to experience winning and losing.
Yep.
Right. And knowing exactly because he's been doing it for a while as a routine. He's going to know exactly how much pressure. He knows how to mount. He knows how to dismount.
That's right.
He knows how to control. He knows how much to apply a pressure on a sub, right? Or at least he should, right?
Yeah.
And guess what? He's also going to be sweating. So he's also going to be relieving all this stress and all this toxicity, right? He's going to be hanging around a bunch of guys. They're going to be talking, right? And he needs that, right? He needs that. And I want that officer in the field. I want that dude, and I want many more of those dudes in the field that have been training here on a regular basis, on a routine, right? And please more. I want more officers in here.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
that's
and
right.
Training, right? Because that officer that does the 3 days a week routine, right, and does sweat and does apply himself, wins and loses like all of us do, right? He's the one that I want out there.
Absolutely, man. And I talk about that a lot. A lot of what is learned from going to jiu-jitsu regularly, it's not like, oh, I know how to apply a Kimura now. Sure, that might be a byproduct, but a more important thing is, like you said, you know what it's like to have somebody on top of you. You know what it's like to have someone mounting you and you're having a hard time breathing and you feel that panic set in and you're trying to buck them off you and you can't. And like you're facing these little bits of adversity every time you come on the mats. Yeah. Now when you face adversity on patrol, okay, I've been here before.
Correct.
There's a level of comfort that comes along with it.
Yeah. And also automation. right? So I don't want the officer to be like, oh my God, what did I learn in that seminar? Did I do this step? No, it's
That's
too
right.
late.
Yeah,
it's too late by then.
Yeah.
You want these things to be automated. You know what I mean?
100%.
It is how you arrest people, right? And never mind the other variables that people don't have it in a gym. That crazy dude that's on meth that's naked with poop all over himself, right?
Yeah.
How do I tackle him and control him? Right? That would be fucking gross. But you have to do it. The officer has to do it.
That's right.
Right? And so those are all the other variables, right? That dude that's super strong and he's on fentanyl and meth. And, you know, those are the variables that I can't account for. But I try my dangest to make sure that the officer is very, very comfortable in his grappling abilities.
No, I like that you said the word automation. I'm going to steal that from you.
Absolutely.
Because that's the thing. And I talk about it all the time. That's why I don't believe in like a Saturday morning women's self-defense seminar. Correct. Because if you go to a seminar for 2 hours, it's not going to do you any good. You have to really invest into training because it's your balance. It's your ability to scramble. It's the ability to get back to your base. Correct. You know, those are the type of things that you gain from training for hours and hours and hours and hours. And then they happen in real time. Like you said, you're not thinking about it's not like
it is.
Okay, I need to scramble to this guy's back. No, you're on the guy's back before you know it. And that's why a lot of agencies, and I mean, I don't know what the solution is because it comes down to budget and time, but I know with my agencies that I've been a part of, they train like grappling techniques maybe once or twice, maybe 3 times a year if you're good, if you're lucky, right?
Correct.
And I remember,
and it should be 3 times a week.
I love that you said that too, because 3 times a week has always been my magic number.
Correct.
You can get really good at 3 times a week.
You can recover, right? If it's a hard session, right? But the whole point is like there's an equation to it, right? So it's like basically you come in, you do a little bit of a warm up, you get warmed up, you do a bit of technique, you repeat that technique, right? And all of a sudden, ready, you're going to be doing whatever. You're going to be doing 5 rounds of 3-minute rolls, right? With a little bit of push ups or sit ups or whatever in between, right? And you do that. That's basically 15 minutes of rolling. Yeah. That doesn't seem like much, but that's all you need 3 days a week, right? And making sure that you're accumulating that technique. Exactly. Right? Yep. And then you're just on the mats, be on the mats. So when you're on the field and all of a sudden there is that call that you need to get to and you need to, arrest somebody with your grappling skills, you are on it. It is. It like you don't have to think about it. It is how you arrest somebody. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
And it's like we talked about again. You asked how I got into jiu-jitsu and I told you my story in Iraq, which I've talked about on the show quite a bit. And a lot of people don't realize how inept they are.
Correct.
They have this misconception in their head of, okay, well, if this happens, I'm going to do this. And if that happens, I'll do that. And then when you get someone on top of you that has even a little understanding of what they're doing, it's such a fucking problem. Like you said, one of my female purple belts, Ariel, visited you guys a couple days ago.
Correct.
And so when I get police officers that are new, I'll have them do a round with her, right? And I'll tell them afterwards, listen, I'm not trying to humiliate you. I'm not trying to make you feel bad. But what I'm showing you is this is a 25-year-old girl, and
she'll whoop your ass.
She whoops your ass, dude. Because she's been training jiu-jitsu for 5 years.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
And so you got to understand that in the world of trained versus untrained, like we know what way it's going to go every fucking time, dude. And it's crazy to me.
We also play around, you know what I mean, with the officers that come into wrestling or judo, because I think that the stand-up component is also very important, right?
Oh, huge.
So, you know what I mean, being able to, get your grips right away, get a clinch, right? Yep. And from that clinch, what? You know what I mean? And you got to be careful because you're not on a mat, you're on concrete, right?
Yeah,
so there's all kinds of little variations. And do you really want to shoot like a low single, right? So there's different variations.
Especially with a vest and all the gear on.
You got your weapon on you. Yeah, it's difficult. So
no, I love that you said that too, because at my gym, and I'm not trashing on any other jiu-jitsu academies, but I got my black belt under Joao Assis, who's an ADCC champion, and his thing is every round starts on our feet.
Yeah.
He goes, because if you want to be a ground fighter and you don't have takedowns, I got news for you. You're not a ground fighter.
Correct.
That's it, And so we teach takedowns, we work takedowns, but more importantly, rounds always start on our feet because that gives people that real feedback. Like this guy has this grip. Oh, I have to break it and I have to move, I have to base this way, or I have to step that way. And you can't make up for that. Because I remember I've trained at gyms where jiu-jitsu always starts on the knees or the butt.
Correct.
And then they'll be like, oh, hey, if you got a competition coming up, go in the corner over there and start some rounds on your feet.
We got full on programs, and that's the thing about it. It's like I'm guilty of standing on your butts, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, we have an amazing wrestling program. We have an amazing judo program. We're hooked up with Budokan from the ID and stuff like that. So we have a bunch of good stuff, and we push. That's the one thing. It's like I push guys. Please go get stand up, right? Go get the wrestling. We offer wrestling and judo. Please do that. We do stand up a little bit on when we start, but it's not as often as we should. And that's definitely true. That you should be able to have that component.
You think about like, especially in gi jiu-jitsu or even no gi, like a good collar tie or a good collar grip.
Yeah,
you're dictating a lot. You're dictating everything. And so. You need to learn how to take control, because how many matches are won or lost off the takedown? Like for my game, I'm a top side player. My guard is not very dangerous. My guard is primarily a sweeping guard, so I can get on top of people.
Correct. Same here.
Yeah. So if I can get,
especially when I'm getting older, I don't want to be underneath very many people.
Dude. Yeah. But so if I can get the takedown, that dictates a lot of times the outcome of the whole fight. And especially as a police officer. You're not looking for a triangle on patrol. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. There's definitely a component for self-defense versus sport jiu-jitsu, right?
100%.
So that you want to be top position. You want to be, side control, mounting, north-south, right? You want to have those dominant positions. If you have the back, you want to have top side back, right? That would be the optimal, right? Versus, being on your concrete. Right? And also, you never know, because there could be other people around you, you know what I mean? That could be wanting to kick you, hurt you, whatever, which way. But yeah, my game is much more about the top game, right? Pinning, being able to use your wrestling to pin. Just recently, I started doing oil wrestling.
Say again?
Oil wrestling. Okay. you look at me like, what?
Oil wrestling?
Oil wrestling. Olive oil wrestling. So I got a friend of mine who's Turkish. He was a European Greco and freestyle champ from back in the day. He used to train over at the New York Athletic Club, and he was an oil wrestler. So I don't know if you ever seen that.
No, I'm not familiar with it at all.
They pour olive oil on you. It's outdoors. They have these leather pants, and they start oil wrestling. I know it's a little gay. Don't judge me. Don't fucking judge me. Okay,
no judgment,
dude. That has been an amazing situation for me especially as getting older. I'm 50 years old, right? And I'm still wrestling with these little 20-year-olds and taking them down. So and it's stylistically, it's a little different, right? But to be able to get grips on somebody when I turn up the heat at 85, 90 degrees, right? And they got oil all over you. Holy shit. And it's changed my game.
Does it just make you have to implement perfect technique?
It's different. Your hands have to be stronger. Your underhook has to be stronger. Your overhook, your neck clinches have to be stronger, right? When you body clinch, people can get out of it.
Yeah.
So you really have to get in there and start gripping, right? So it's different, you know what I mean? And it's helped a lot. But also it saved me. It saved my elbows. It saved my shoulders.
Oh, okay.
Right? So I don't take that big, the big, torques on your elbow, your shoulder, right? Your neck. Because you can kind of like slip out of it a little bit, right? Yeah. So
no, I like it, man.
That's my thing. I know. You're gonna wrestle with me.
I'm gonna come down and get oiled up. No, I like that you said that, because it's like, I just turned 40, so I'm a decade behind you.
Yeah.
But I'm starting. I'm 17, 18 years into jiu-jitsu now, and I'm starting to feel it.
Yep.
And it
save those joints.
Yeah, it kind of scares me, because it's like, I want to be able to train with my guys and have jiu-jitsu in my life forever. But at the same time, I also got guys like Victor Diaz coming up who I have to fight to the death. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like the first time he visited, I was like, visiting purple belt. And we started rolling, and
no, he rolled.
Hey,
he likes to roll.
I didn't take it as serious as I should have. That motherfucker got on my back, and dudes don't get on my back. Like that doesn't happen. And I was like, oh no. And so I felt bad, because it's like, this dude came from out of town. He texted me that, he sent me that video that he got in an altercation up at Green Lake Park. Right. So that's how we got connected on the internet. And then he came and visited, and I was like, "Dad, I had a shitty round with him." And so next time I was like, "It's on, dude." And he's like, and I was like, takedown, pressure. And he's like, "Fuck, man, you felt like Khabib on top of me." But it's like, dude, how much longer can I grind like that? Because what I would hate is to put so much focus on smashing dudes that are younger than me that it now detracts from my ability to have a long, healthy career in jiu-jitsu. You're
going to change your style here soon. You're going to change. Well, obviously, the top game is a big component, which is good for you and your jiu-jitsu. But soon, I would hope that you will be taking care of the things that you can't replenish, right? So joint, ligament, tendon, right? So those are the things that you really want to take care of, right? Your shoulders, your hips, right? Your elbows, your wrists, your neck, your back, right? And so within that, you're going to be careful on who you're rolling with, right? You're going to be going with guys that are not going to try to freaking break your elbow or hurt you, right? So be careful, especially at this age that you want to be rolling to your 50, 55, right? 60. So be careful, you know what I mean, in that sense. And training little by little is going to diminish and get smarter. You're not going to be like going out there and doing these like massive runs and massive lifts and all that stuff. It's all going to diminish and it's going to be precise, right? You want to do just enough so it can complement your skill set, right? Not overburden it.
Yeah.
And that's the balance. And everybody's different in that aspect,
for sure,
right? So whatever it may be for you, if it's lifting weights or if it's running or if it's biking or swimming or whatever it may be, you're going to have to condition yourself a little bit different to save those joints. You don't want those fuckers to be inflamed, right? Throughout the day, throughout the week.
Yeah. And I mean, even at 40, I'm finding if I do get my elbow tweaked or my knee tweaked, I mean, I fucked my elbow up 6 months ago and it's still not back to normal yet, And it's just like, when is this thing going to go back to normal? Like, it's weird when you think about, and maybe it's just because my memory's failing me, but I don't remember injuries in my 20s.
Yeah,
I don't remember them being a thing.
You're invincible.
Yeah.
Right? And you recover the next day. I remember going through like massive workouts at AMC, massive workouts, sweat, puddles of sweat, getting tortured. You know what I mean? Good night's sleep, wake up, okay,
ready to go.
Exactly. Now I have one of those. I'm out for like 3 days.
Yeah,
man. It's horrible. What has helped me is I've been going out to the auction in Enumclaw, right? And in Enumclaw they have auctions of cattle. So I've been going out there with my friend and we're going out there and we're butchering our own cattle.
Okay.
Right. And so my wife is Russian and she's like, don't waste anything. Give me everything. Right. And I'm like, okay, I'll give you it. She's liver, kidneys, tongue, heart, blah, 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 spine. All right, cool. So the neck all the way down. So she makes bone broth off of that spine, right? And she keeps it in the slow cooker for hours and hours, basically all day long. Drink that.
Okay.
Right? Bone broth from fresh bones, right? Drink that and you'll see that you're going to feel great. Your joints, your shoulders, everything.
All right. I'm in, dude. I'm in.
Fresh bones.
I have a whole fucking cabinet that's just this fish oil and CLA and turmeric and like every single joint supplement you can think of. So
I mean that's cute, but go.
Yeah, no, I'm ready. I'm ready, dude.
You can go out there.
Yeah, go to Snohomish.
Elk, deer, whatever. Take the spine, slow cook it, and get the broth off of it.
Okay, yeah, I'm down. I'll definitely give that a try.
You're gonna call me like, damn, Ivan, that's not true.
I feel 25 again.
I'm telling you, bone broth.
That's so cool, man. Fuck, dude. This has been a fun podcast. Yes. We're an hour and a half in already. It's crazy when like it's just flowing. You look down at the clock and it's like, oh shit, Yeah. What have you noticed about like since the election? And it seems like everybody's starting to dial this thing down a little bit. Has the business started to ramp back up?
Yes, I mean the thing about it is that it's obvious that all of a sudden that the emergency of COVID is little by little diminishing, right? So the percentages of people that are are recovered or it's like 70% or something like that, right? But in all, there isn't this hyper awareness to have everything closed. So little by little, we're starting to open a little bit more. More people are coming in and asking. More people are calling to want to come back. So it is happening, right? So there's a massive amount of people that have gotten COVID, gotten over COVID. So there's a massive amount of recovery, right? The herd immunity type.
Yeah.
Then there's the vaccines that are coming out, right? There's 3 different vaccines that are being used right now.
None of which I'm taking.
Neither am I. Neither am I. My immune system works just fine.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? In that aspect, yes, they're pushing that. Also, this hype of being scared is diminishing because Trump's not in office. That's an evident, right?
Yeah.
And sadly, which I cry, they're reversing all of the executive orders that Trump put forth, right? So basically, they're opening up the borders. They're freaking opening up, it's faucets open for whatever China wants.
Biden reversed some of his like sexual offender task force programs.
Madness.
What are we talking about here? I didn't know that wanting to target sex offenders was a political issue.
Correct.
What the fuck? What are we talking about here?
You'd think that he'd be for it, right? Especially after his 94 crime bill, right? I mean, his crime bill that he signed years ago, that he'd be all for, law enforcement in that aspect. They're going backwards. It's crazy. You know what I mean? And the restrictions on, again, coal, oil, gas, right? And thinking that we're all of a sudden going to, generate energy for America through windmills and solar. It's just cool. It's not a bad situation.
Yeah, exactly.
But you can't. It's an impossibility. This country's run on gas, coal, and oil, right? And so right now, gas is going up.
Yep.
Right. All these situations are reversed. There's already hordes that are coming through the border, right? There's already things that are happening, and there's not a peep from the mainstream media. Nothing.
No.
You know what I mean? All of them are in alignment, are being so quiet, and they talk about his dog, right? They talk about his socks. They talk about all kinds of stupid shit, right? That has nothing to do with nothing, but the policies are being reversed. And guess what? We're back in Syria. After all, you know what I mean? Like they're bombing Syria for what?
Dude, I shared a screenshot of what's her name, Jen Patsky, or however you say her last name, of her like chastising Trump for an operation in Syria.
Yeah, from
2017, right? Yeah. And it's like, oh, look, look what we're doing now, The craziest shit, I mean, I don't know if it's the craziest because everything's fucking bananas right now, but did you see the confirmation for the assistant health secretary? That Rand Paul was calling him out on? Did you?
Dude, what do you think about that? I mean, with all honesty, like to me, it's. I don't care if you want to wear dresses or you think whatever you are.
Yeah.
Right. But
go cut your dick off. Nobody cares, dude.
Exactly. Nobody cares. But what bothers me a lot is that they're pushing that agenda in our schools. You know what I mean? And so and they're really trying to advocate like it's a situation that we really have to adhere to, right? So I'll ask you, would you allow a transgender, right, that identifies into your female locker room?
No.
You think?
Yeah.
When my wife goes to the bathroom, and my mother goes pee, and my daughter to change. Are you crazy? It's like, what the fuck is going on? It doesn't make sense, right? And they're coming into the sport years ago. I had a situation that a promoter came to me and he's like, "Hey man, we have this girl that wants to fight one of your girls, Stephanie Weber, who's one of my fighters from back in the day." What's her name? Fallon Fox. And I was like, okay, sure.
You have first-hand experience with that motherfucker.
Yeah, well, I was like, okay, sure, no problem. I didn't think anything else. Tell me the dates, what are we going to do, what weight category, how we're going to do, blah, 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 blah. Let me look him up. Let me look her up. Excuse me. At that time, it was her because I was like, what? It's a dude.
Yeah.
What do you mean? It's a dude, and he's been a dude, you know what I mean?
Tell her he's like 35 or something.
He had a kid, and it was a dude. And so and he was yoked, you know what I mean? And I was like, no, my brother, I'm sorry. We're not going to do this fight. You know what I mean? You do you, but you know what I mean? And Stephanie was mad at me. She's like, I could have taken him. Shut the fuck up. Okay. Let me do this for you. Okay. Yeah. Like, no, that very next fight, Fallon broke this other girl's face.
Yeah, her
broke
cracked her skull.
Cracked her her orbital, her face, made her a mess. I think she retired right after that. Like done fighting.
What kind of person wants to? I mean, again, if you want to cut your dick off,
do it.
We could still be homies.
Cool.
We could even oil wrestle, like whatever. Right? But who would want to do that as a man and then go beat the fuck out of women? Like, what are we talking about here? And if you say that that's odd, or you think that that's something that is strange for a person to want to do, we're the bad guys. Like Joe Rogan spoke against that, and he caught some shit.
Huge.
Yeah.
So, but let's talk about, we're separating right now out of respect, right? And also out of just reality, right? We're dividing male and female bathrooms, restrooms, lockers, right? Because we if not, we could be like the Roman times. We just have baths, right? We could all be like buck ass naked and just changing and pooping and peeing and right in front of everybody. Cool, if you wanted to do that. But it isn't. For generations now, we have separated that, and we created a respect for male and female, right? And so, and the same thing with sports, right? If you want to be a transgendered fighter, cool. But you can't be going into the female division.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you want to go to the male and you don't think you should be going to the male, then there needs to be a situation where you're creating a transgendered fighting league.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And that solves all issues, right? You want to cut off your penis and put on breasts.
And then go fight other people that do the same.
You want to put on, and that's another thing, from female to male. Do you know the amounts of testosterone that they have to inject?
Well, bro, I've talked about this a lot. Like, if you are an athlete, or if you are a special operations soldier, or you're anyone that wants to put some extra testosterone in your body because it helps you recover, it helps you build muscle, everyone is fucking just, he's a cheater, he's a fucking piece of shit. Like, but if you want to become a man, suddenly testosterone is good for a 12-year-old girl. So, I mean, what is it?
Madness.
Like, it's cool. It's cool if my daughter, who's 11, shoots testosterone. But for me, as a 40-year-old man,
you would get in trouble if you denied that. If you denied her that, you'd get in trouble.
No, so I mean, that's what got me spun up on this topic to start with. Was Rand Paul was like, listen, because he was a physician before he was in Congress, right? And he goes, as a physician, if I suture up a child that has a cut, I have to have parental consent to do that.
Correct.
And you think that you should allow genital mutilation, allow people to have their fucking penises cut off without parental consent?
By a child's discretion. Beat that with a bat.
Yeah, dude. Us as society, we don't grant children to make any type of long-term decisions. You can't even buy a can of Copenhagen, but you can cut your dick off. And the most frustrating thing about it is Rand Paul is an articulate man, and he understands this as a physician, and he wouldn't answer it. He goes,
we can discuss it in your office.
Transgender is a very nuanced and complicated issue, and I'll be, if appointed to the position, I'll be more than happy to discuss it with you. We're discussing it right now.
Correct. Answer the question.
But no.
It's crazy. And that's the direction that we're going. And the unfortunate part about it, that there's many women right now, especially in sports, that are losing their scholarships. They're losing their ability to win state championships, right? And they've spent years and years training and years, applying their sport. And that's being at detriment right now.
This is what I don't understand, is that the left has always spoke out about being the party of women's rights. Well, where are you now?
Correct.
Because
nothing. No peeps.
Like, dude, I'm sure you've seen all the pictures of these transgender weightlifters. The dudes that
winning a record
breaking.
Like,
I could probably go break a women's record myself. Like, it's not impressive. You suck as a dude, so you have to go be a female now. And
sprinters, and handball, and all these other variations, basketball, these different variations of sports. But I kind of giggle a little bit. I giggle a little bit just on the fact that Title IX screwed us wrestlers for a long time, right? Because they wanted to divide the big monies between male and female programs, right? And now transgenderism is sticking it to the Title IX situation. I laugh a little bit, not too much, but at the same time, I'm like, this is what happens. You know what I mean? It came back and bit you.
Did you see Gabby Garcia today?
Sub
She issued a challenge to Gordon Ryan.
No.
Yeah. She says, I'll fight you. I don't care. I don't know. Did you see that whole thing play out?
No. I know there was issues with Atos, the what's his name?
Andre Galvao.
Andre Galvao.
Yeah, he's the head of Atos.
Okay.
And him and Gordon Ryan have been going at it on social media for like probably years now, right? Yeah. And they got in an argument, and Gordon Ryan slapped him right across the face.
Damn. And what'd he do?
Nothing. He didn't do anything. Yeah. And so, I mean, it should be over, right? if you slap someone and it's not on, then it should be over, right? So we'll see where it goes. But a lot of people are like, that was staged. It's for hype. And fuck, I doubt it. I don't think so.
No, nobody gets slapped in the face for hype. It's like, you slap in my face, we're throwing.
Yeah. But dude, Gordon Ryan, I mean, the whole Danaher thing is it's fascinating to me.
They're training in Puerto Rico now.
Yeah,
New York.
because they've had it too.
Yeah,
you know. Yeah. But I actually recently bought one of Danaher's DVDs just because I mean that dude's a wizard, right? And that guy's brain understands jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Unlike anybody I've ever listened to, you know.
Like, well, he kind of puts me to sleep. He's like ASMR because he talks very like this.
Oh,
and I'm like, and I'm kind of like head bobbing. I'm like, I'm falling asleep.
Yeah,
it's like I mean, super articulate and amazing step-by-step processes, right? But at the same time, like, man, this guy's got.
It's hard. It's hard to
put a little more color on this. You know what I mean?
No, because he's like. The top lock position offers 3 separate attacks. The first attack offers 3 subsequent attacks from there, and then 4 subsequent control positions from there. And you have to graph that shit out to understand what he's saying.
Totally,
you know,
totally.
But it's cool.
He's very articulate. You know what I mean?
And you look at the dudes that like went all in with him, like Gordon Ryan, Craig Jones, Gary Tonin. They're fucking monsters, dude.
They got the badass team.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing team, and they train well. Mm-hmm. They train very smart. You know what I mean? And so they have a guy that's, you know what I mean, right now that's just, you know, he's a genius. You know what I mean? Danaher is a freaking jiu-jitsu genius.
Yep.
And that's been told back in the days when he used to train GSP. You know what I mean? Back in the day when he was, you know, doing the situation with Renzo Gracie, right? But yeah, I mean, his tapes and everything, his leg locks, transitions, his everything. It just step-by-step process, amazing.
It's so cool to see, like, because I mean, what really did it for me is, I mean, like I told you, I trained with Buchecha a lot, and I've never had 30 seconds of a round with Buchecha where I felt any better than a white belt.
Yeah.
Like, even as a black belt, dude, he does anything he wants to me.
Correct.
And then to see him and Gordon Ryan go, and he couldn't do anything to Gordon Ryan. And it puts it in perspective. I was like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
You know?
He's the top-notch guy right now. He is the dude. You know what I mean? He's the #1 pound-for-pound grappler in the world right now. Imagine that. There's a lot of grapplers, a lot of jiu-jitsu players, right? All kinds of wrestlers from all different directions. He's #1.
And just consistently
subbing top-notch dudes.
Yeah, like yesterday he said, and I guess the guy he subbed, I can't remember his name, but Gordon Ryan got on his Instagram and goes, I will finish this with a armbar from Mount. And he went out there and did it. Dude.
Oh my God, predicted, man.
And then you see him like Cyborg. You watch Gordon Ryan with Cyborg, it's like he's toying with him. Yeah. And Cyborg
is a beast. Yeah, he's a gorilla, man.
You know?
And been for years.
Yeah, top of the food chain for years. Yeah. And then it's not even competitive.
Correct. That's the new generation, and that's what's happening right now. Amazingly, is that all these guys are just accumulating technique over technique over technique, right? And so you've had guys from, you know what I mean, like the 10th Planet guys with their rubber guard and the lockdowns and, you know what I mean, and the twisters and stuff like that. And then you have all these different variations of stuff from Danaher, right? Those sweeps with the elevator sweeps and things like that. The Barambolos from the Mendes brothers, and right, and the whole different jiu-jitsu variation from Brazil. And now all of it. I mean, there's so much out there right now. It's crazy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And on top of these guys are athletic beasts. They're lifting hard. They're being very strong. Yeah. Right? They're very flexible.
Nutrition's on point.
Right? It's just incredible. So we're seeing some really high level dudes doing, you know, incredible things. You know what I mean? And I love it. And I really like the sub-only situation. I like that.
I think that's cool too.
Yeah.
And I understand it's never going to be a spectator sport because to watch two guys go at it for 40 minutes. If you don't understand jiu-jitsu, a lot of it probably seems pretty boring.
Correct.
It's like how many
But the community is getting bigger.
That's true.
And bigger and bigger.
I've seen a lot of more guys right now, watching, sub only or jiu-jitsu matches that are turning over to football. I'll tell you that much. There's a lot of guys that are being turned off by football, by basketball, by baseball, and they're
coming over to the dark side.
Exactly. And they're coming over. It's like, oh my God, that was amazing. Did you see? Or MMA, they're loving fights.
Yeah.
Right. And then from there also they go into the variations of other martial arts. Right. They start watching jiu-jitsu. They start watching grappling, wrestling. Right. Things like that.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and it's like you said. Me up north, I get guys from Boeing, and you get guys from Amazon or Microsoft, like. That never fighting's not really a part of their life, but then they start grappling, and 2 years later they're a blue belt in jiu-jitsu, and now they are interested in like following the sport or coming over. We'll have like team UFC night and stuff,
And they know the names of the moves and all this. Yeah, of course. And they're following all the fighters and the grapplers. Yeah, of course. That's amazing that it has become that. You know what I mean? But where you're from, very strong. Lake Stevens has a great wrestling program.
Oh, Lake Stevens is known.
What's the coach up there? The head
Burke.
coach? Oh, dude. God.
Or no, Burke Barnes.
Burke Barnes.
Barnes.
Been a god for, wrestling god forever in that region. Multiple state championships. You know what I mean? So you must have a bunch of studs.
It's interesting you say that because I don't have a lot of crossover from wrestlers, but because of COVID, the high school wrestling room was closed. And so someone found out that my mat room was open. So I've had some of those kids up there, and I'm not kidding you. There's some 17-year-old kids that are like hard rounds. And I'm just like, what the fuck? Dude, I've been doing jiu-jitsu longer than you've been alive.
Correct.
And they're just bridging and spinning and scrambling, and they don't get tired. And it's like, there's some monsters.
Yeah. So. Well, I mean, first, I think that, the Lake Stevens program is huge and amazing. And two, they just create a different animal over there. The Lake Stevens kid where you're at is a tough, leathery kid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's much different than Seattle kids, right? Most of the Seattle kids are here really, really soft, right? So, especially in the surrounding, city area. But where you're at, they make them strong. They make them tough.
No, I mean, that was, again, like I grew up in Snohomish, so just right next door to Lake Stevens. And dude, not that long ago, like I said, I'm 40. When I was, say 16 to 18, like my last 2 years of high school, if you're at a party and that other kids from Lake Stevens were fighting, like that's just how it was. Like Snohomish and Lake Stevens had this rivalry that went on for years and fighting every weekend. And I don't know if that's the case anymore. I don't think people just go to parties and throw down, but I mean, that used to be just Friday night,
The kids' culture has changed drastically.
Yeah.
Drastically.
Like I'm talking to some of my kids that are like trained jiu-jitsu with me, and they're like, if you do anything at school, you get arrested now.
Arrested?
For a fight? Yeah. And I'm just like, what the fuck, dude?
Wow.
Like,
But that's a big, step right there.
Yeah,
you get arrested
dude.
for kids, throwing. Oh my God, that's crazy.
And I look at like growing up fighting a lot. That was something that like really shapes you. Like, and again, it didn't make me a good fighter because I didn't know what I was doing, but it just teaches you about like just confidence and conflict and sticking up for yourself. I always tell people, I think there's an element of bullying that's actually good for people. And nobody wants to hear that because bullying on its surface is kind of bullshit, right? And 9 times out of 10, the kid that's doing it probably has his own demons at home, and then he goes and projects that onto other people at school, But it allows kids an opportunity to figure out, that didn't feel good.
There's a valve release. What I consider when you fight, when you're young, right? So you're talking middle school, high school, things of that nature. If there's a fight, especially if it's done correctly, right? So if it's like, okay, me and you, we have a conflict.
Yeah.
Oh, whatever. Blah, blah. We're going to go to the backyard and we're going to just have a little or at it, right? And then afterwards, whatever. You beat me, I beat you. Cool. Handshake.
release.
Yeah.
It's a valve release, right? And then most of the time, and this was at least when I was young, it was
Your friends afterwards?
Your buddies.
I knew what you were going to say.
Your
Yeah.
buddies afterwards. And that culture has been dismissed now, especially in Washington and Seattle. Seattle used to be a tough, strong town. I don't know if you remember that, but Ballard, bunch of fishermen, right? The ports right here in Seattle. I mean, it was no joke. It was a blue collar Boeing, right? All these guys. So it was a different culture, and little by little, I don't know if it's through high tech or whatever, and the culture change. It's been very feminized. You know what I mean? It's been very soft in that aspect, right? So kids nowadays, they don't tend to be very aggressive, or even they're extremely quiet, effeminate. So it's a real change, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure it has to do with hours and hours of sitting on your ass,
Staring at an iPhone.
yeah, staring at an iPhone, or watching a video, or doing a video game. So instead of being active, they're being active on a video game, right?
Yeah.
Instead of going outside and playing, they're being sedate, right? Instead of eating well and having fresh fruits and vegetables and stuff, they're junk food, right? So all of a sudden you're getting the little kids with chi-chis, right?
It's crazy.
And fat and just, it's madness. You know what I mean? Because I think that the Northwest was built on like loggers, right? And freaking miners, right? And people that work in the ports and the fisheries. So genetically, a lot of these kids are like these strong ass fucking Norwegians and Vikings, right? And
That's me, man. My family's from Iceland.
Totally. So in that aspect, genetically, you're built to be a freaking Viking.
Although I refer to myself as a mini Viking because I'm only 205 pounds. I picture those guys like Brock Lesnar, you know?
But in all that the strong masculine man is looked down upon now.
I know.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And having any kind of aggression is also, looked at as something deviant. And if it's not controlled and if it's not done right, like in a sense of chivalry or gentlemanliness, I think it is an ugly situation.
Of course.
But if it's done correctly, it's a great builder for character. Right, it's a great builder for young people, right? And to have kids in programs, and I think they should be in programs that allows them to be pugilistic and allows them to win and lose through that the vein of pugilism. Let it be boxing, kickboxing, wrestling, submission wrestling, jiu-jitsu, judo, whatever it may be. That struggle, man versus man struggle, is a great character builder,
dude. It's the best character builder. And it's not just kids. I mean, even adults that may have not had that as part of their life. Again, like you said, you have all these major tech companies, and I got Boeing and different things up north. You get people that this was never part of their life, and then they start to experience it, and it becomes part of their life. Dude, that valve release, everybody that starts to train and becomes part, like it becomes part of your schedule, part of your regular life. How many times have you been like, I've missed training, or like I was driving home and I call my wife and she's like, no, go to training tonight. Like, I need that valve release too.
Correct.
You know?
Correct.
And
I've had many guys that have thanked me to save their marriages, right?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why, because like if you routinize a gentleman out here at Amazon or Facebook, whatever, that spends whatever, 9, 10, 11, 12 hours a day in front of a computer, right? Always, you know what I mean? And eating like shit, sitting on his ass all day long. All of a sudden he starts doing this, right? He starts rolling around with other men, right? Wrestling, grappling. He starts lifting a little bit. He starts eating a little bit better. Oh shit, the shoulders start popping. Oh my God, my legs start popping. The abs start popping, right? Oh fuck, the dick starts going up in the morning. Oh my God, testosterone. It's no joke. And next thing you know, they feel confident. They look good. Their skin feels better, right? They have a different outlook. They're not submissive. They don't have their shoulders all hunched over. I'm telling you, there's quite a few fellas that have come up to say, thank you, you saved my marriage.
I love hearing that.
Yeah.
I say it all the time. 5% of what you gain by committing to martial arts has to do with fighting.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying? Like 95% of it is beneficial to all the other aspects of your life.
And as a human animal, man, your woman is going to look at you differently when all of a sudden you got those nice shoulders.
Without
right?
100%,
If you're all submissive and weak and kind of like, slumped over, right? And not taking care of yourself and stuff like that, all of a sudden the little lady boners don't fucking get hard, right? So they're not,
lady boners, I like it.
They don't dig that, right?
Yeah, of course
and
not.
so they want that dude that's, oh my God, that's my man, right? And I'm not trying to be chauvinistic about it, but it's just a natural instinct.
There shouldn't be anything like pejorative by saying being a man and being strong and being healthy is a good thing. You know what I mean?
Correct.
Like we've reached a point where like, oh, it's toxic masculinity. You know, like get the fuck out of here. Toxic masculinity won World War II. So, so you know what I'm saying? Correct. You think those dudes that fucking climbed Point du Hoc and fucking took out the fucking machine gun bunkers on Normandy were fucking little wimpy bitches?
Oppressed culture.
Yeah. No, they were ready to get after it.
Correct.
You know,
And the thing about it, it's sad, but right now that's the big push, right? That toxic masculinity. But the truth behind it is that there is a separation. There is a separation between male and female. And if a male is acting too feminine, that's not attractive to most females. It's not. You know what I mean? So in that situation, I'm not saying that you have to be all freaking, vulgar and beastly, but a little bit of training goes a long ways for, not only your physicality, but your demeanor, your attitude, right? And if it's done correctly, and that's the main focus, if it's done correctly through being at least a gentleman, it goes a long way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because that's another big situation. It's like, just act with manners. Just act with manners, and that situation kind of handles itself. You know
and then the other thing that I think about is like, if you do have a woman, or you do have children, or you have a community, that's your responsibility to protect and defend.
Correct.
It has to be. And if you're not willing to do that, like, if you don't take that serious, of course the woman's not going to look at you the same. Like since the beginning of humanity, the man defended and protected his woman. And now that's 2020. We can put that behind us. Get the fuck out of here, dude.
Yes. The sad thing about it is that we have, for way too long, in a sense of like this short time, have had the police to take care of us, society, the laws, everything else. We have pulled away from survivalism, right? So for generations, we've had to worry about somebody else, some entity, some tribe, some clan, some country coming in and taking everything, right? Killing us, taking our women and our children, right? And that was the norm for hundreds of thousands of years, right?
Up until
recent
100 years ago,
correct. And so just recently have we been able to really protect ourselves to the extent where like people don't even recognize that. That they could be in jeopardy, right? That they could lose everything to, these warring hordes, and that it is dependent on the men in this clan, this culture, this community to defend them, right? And so it's a lost thought. You know what I mean? That all this, for hundreds of thousands of years, we've been in survival mode in that way. And we've depended on masculine and feminine, right, to be able to have certain roles, right? And that's why there was the female would be more nurturing. They would take care of the kids. There would be more of the teaching and things of that nature. The male would be more of the protector, right? The provider.
Killing animals.
Yeah.
Fighting off hordes of people.
And so we're talking in massive generalities, but at the same time, we've been protected for so long that ideal, that natural instinct is being lost and being mixed. It's not being really of how would I describe it? It's not being thought of. Right. And so that's why, like now,
they're not, men, it's even being demonized. It's not only is it not being prioritized, but it's like, it's almost being demonized.
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah, and it's been accepted. Like if you look right now, you go down down Seattle's streets right now, and you look at fellas, right? Are they going to be masculine, dominant, strong, alpha? Not very much.
Yeah, probably not.
Not very much. But you're not going to see that. But you go where you live, right? You're going to see that a little bit more.
A little bit more, yeah.
Right?
The farther north you go, you see it a little bit more.
Or out, right?
Yeah.
Where you don't have the current culture being emulated. Out to the outskirts.
But in I've thought about this a lot. It's not only in regards to like being an alpha or being fit or being able to fight. It's just facing adversity overall.
But don't you think that pugilistic sports creates that on a daily
100%.
basis?
Yeah. I'm the biggest advocate for that. But there's also other adversities that people face, like when was the last time you were cold? You know what I mean?
Correct.
When was the last time you were hungry?
Hungry.
Yeah.
Not just like not like 3 o'clock. I'm hungry.
But like those were part of the human experience too. Freezing to death, going days without food. Like facing danger on all different levels, not just by fucking predators or rival clans, but like the human experience was adversity, and now it's all gone. Now our houses are set at 75 degrees, our fridges are full of food, and no one's coming to get us. And if someone tries, we can pick up our phone and you have men with guns coming to defend you. And it's like, you've nerfed all the edges. Everything's too safe now. And
the real danger is what you see on movies or TV shows, right? All of a sudden, like you're getting that experience via dramas.
Yeah,
so you're not really feeling it. You're not really living it.
Dude, it's funny you say that because I always think about that. It's like everyone wants to act like fighting and violence and all that stuff is bad, but everybody eats it up in the theaters.
Yeah.
Well, why is that? Because there's some part of your brain that craves chaos and craves combat and craves conflict. That's just part of the human experience.
Correct. Yeah.
But no, now people read about it and watch it. Yeah. And there's a select, a lot of veterans have faced a lot of adversity. You're a pro fighter. You faced a lot of adversity. So there's still people out there that have it, but it's definitely the minority these days.
Correct. And it's weird because it has molded our culture differently, especially right now in its current base, right? So that is where I think that the oppression culture, the victim culture is very strong, that everything's offensive, right? Everything offends people and they need safe spaces. What the fuck is that mean? Safe spaces. And things that could easily be in a situation where like normally, a few years back, at least in my generation, if somebody offended you to the extent where you were like, okay, you offended me to the extent where I'm going to hit you.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? I'm going to punch you. We're going to fight, right? If you offend me to that extent, right? That is no longer the case, right? So then the next one is basically, okay, I'm going to say whatever to offend you. You just turn around and walk away, right?
Yeah.
Even on social media right now, it's crazy that people are reporting other people, right? Like literally like ratting each other out, right? For things that they get offended by, right? Instead of just turning it off or turning it or going to another page or whatever, they're reporting you, right?
Well, I think a lot of people unconsciously seek that conflict that we were just talking about on their phones because no part of their life is giving them that adversity. And so they tell someone on social media to fuck themselves and it kind of makes them feel good, right? And they're like, yeah, that guy said something I didn't like. I told him to fuck off. And then he replies back something. And then I replied back something. And dude, how many threads have you seen that are like 30 responses of two people going back and forth?
Dude, I do it all. I'm guilty of that. I'm guilty of it because you know what? I look at like Facebook and all these different, social media situations as sport argument. You know what I mean? So I just go back and forth with people on tangents that I call them on, for whatever this current culture is pushing, right? Let it be whatever, right? From defending Trump to, misogyny to, transgenderism and LGBT rights and you name it down the road. You can just go down the line of all these like controversial topics that I have no problems arguing because Guess what? Next morning, no one's going to call me to go to HR.
Yeah.
No one's going to go. Oh,
And you know what else is not going to happen the next morning? They're not going to be knocking on your door saying, let's settle this like men.
I would love it. That'd be awesome.
Bro, I've done that a couple times where like some people said some stupid shit to me and it's like, hey, listen, I'll buy your plane ticket, come to the gym and sign a waiver.
Yeah.
And then I'll delete it after a couple minutes because I'm like, dude, I don't need to get sucked into some stupid fight. Like, I'm easy to find. If they want to tell me to fuck myself on the internet, then that's the extent. That's the extent of what they want to do because
Correct.
I'm easy to find.
Correct. I'm the same thing. I'm downtown Seattle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You know where I'm at.
You're walking that door
My
anytime.
name is on the fucking on the door. So yeah. But at the same time, it's easy to rile yourself up, and the hard part is to really win the argument through logic, right? Through rationality, and that's what I'm finding right now is that there's a lack of rationality when it comes to a lot of these topics, right? And so, and especially when it comes to topics that pertain to how you feel, and it's unfortunate, but. How you feel cannot determine, you know what I mean, the ability for you to win the argument.
Yeah.
That's not how it is.
Exactly,
you know what I mean?
right.
Especially when it pertains to like the rights, Constitution, right? You have the right to say whatever you want. And so do I.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so in that situation, it's okay. So we're going to put these words into an argument. So you have your set of standards of what you're going to go by, and then I got mine, right? And then we will see. You know what I mean? Oh, can I convince you? Can you convince me of that argument and go from there, right?
Yeah.
But it never goes that way. It always goes to like fuck you, fuck that.
And I think that's a big part of the internet is that very few people get into any type of debate on the internet with the intent of learning or growing, right? If I'm going to debate you on something, I should be willing to be like, okay, like if Ivan brings like good points and good perspectives, I need to be willing to accept those and then grow from those. And you said something earlier. You said after training, I sit on the mats and he goes, people that have different political views than me, we'll sit down and we'll have discussions. And sometimes they're hard discussions, but they're face to face. You know each other.
Correct.
You just kicked each other's asses. And now we're going to try and hash some things out, right? That's a healthy place to do it. The phone, I just don't feel like is a healthy place. You don't know who that person is. They don't know who you are. They don't give a shit about you. And they really don't care if you to see you do well, or they just want to feel like they won. That's what it is, you know?
Yeah. I mean, but it goes both ways.
Of course it
You know
does.
what I mean?
Of course it does.
I go in the same direction because I don't believe that I have to accept any of this bullshit.
No,
I don't.
and you shouldn't.
And that's the thing about it is that I do have discrimination. I do discriminate. I do have that right and the ability to go, nope, I don't want this in my life. I don't like these thoughts in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like this philosophy. I don't like this type of situation. And I have that right to be able to say, no.
Yeah.
You stay there. I'm over here. I'm not going to be going out and assaulting you. I'm not going to try to hurt you. I'm not going to try to demean you in that aspect or try to destroy that thought. If you want to believe that, be that, do it.
Yeah.
But not with me.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
100%.
So, and that's what's hard right now is that the projection of a lot of these leftist ideals is opposite of that. They want to force you to think a certain way.
And if you don't accept it, there's something wrong with you.
And they'll hurt you for it. They'll try to hurt you for it, right? They'll try to dox you. They'll try to demean you. They'll put a label on you, right? Oh, Nazi, KKK member, fucking misogynist, but all these fucking name calling labels that doesn't pertain to really winning the argument, or at the very least try to think that you're going to convince me of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So in that way, you know what I mean? Like, you know, I do have arguments, and I love it. I love arguing on the internet.
That's what I said. I've seen them, dude.
It's like,
for me, Ivan throws down.
Well,
dude.
it's sport argument to me,
Yeah.
and I laugh my head off because I'm free. I don't have to answer to a corporation, right? I don't have to answer to a boss next day. It's like, hey, your Facebook posts were fucking really rude or whatever. Go fuck yourself.
Yeah,
You know what I mean, it doesn't.
Bro, that was me. Hey, your video, you need to take it down.
What did you say to that?
I said exactly this. I said, the video I posted was telling police officers to respect people's constitutional rights at all cost, up into including losing your job, because people's rights are more important than your job, period.
Bless you.
And I said,
Bless you. That's amazing.
Yeah, and I said, and I even said, as part of it was, you have to stand for what you believe to be right at all costs. I said, so if I put that message out there, and then you told me that I can't put that message out there, so I take it down, I said, everybody I know is going to lose respect for me. Therefore, it has to stay.
How could that be offensive to the point where they're telling you to take it down? I don't get it.
Well, what they said is, what it boiled down to, after a bunch of back and forth with my command staff, what it boiled down to is I said police officers should defy the governor. They said, you can't say that. I said, you can say that. The governor's just a man. And if he's doing things that are against
illegal,
people's constitutional rights, not only should I say that, I have to say that, because my job as a police officer is to uphold and defend the Constitution. And they're like, well, and so people have theories that the call came from the governor's office to shit can me.
Yeah.
But again, it goes like, everybody's just playing this game and trying to appease everybody. Nothing that I said in that video should have offended anyone. Nothing I said in that video was even anti-COVID. I didn't make it about COVID.
No, it was about the Constitution.
It's about the Constitution.
Correct.
Because I get that COVID is a tough subject for a lot of people, Yeah. And like we said, we don't need to rehash it out, but there's old, sick people that are vulnerable, had tough times with it. I know a lot of family members lost people. Like, I didn't want to make it about COVID. What I wanted to make it about is people's constitutional rights.
Right.
So in my opinion, there wasn't two sides to that argument, but my chain of command felt otherwise, And I don't know if you heard this.
So you can never disagree with the governor?
Well, not if you're a cop publicly.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that fucking insane,
That's
dude?
amazing.
It's
bro.
insane.
So you can't have an opinion and post an opinion in any situation.
Well,
if it's opposite of the governor.
They said it was because I was in uniform. They said, you're representing the profession of police. And I was like, yeah. I said, I did that on purpose. Because if I made that video in my backyard sitting in my fire pit, it wouldn't have carried the same weight. People wanted to see that not only were they fed up with everything, but police officers are fed up as well.
Correct.
Because what I saw was a divide growing, where people were becoming more distrustful and people were becoming feeling like the cops were against them. And that's a scary place to be as a cop.
Absolutely.
I'm on the people's side. I want them to know that. That's not up for debate or up for discussion. As a police officer, you serve the public, period.
That's the scary part, I think, for most people is because most people want to be law abiding.
Yes.
They do.
Uh-huh.
They want to have normalcy and have a certain sense of peace, right, through these laws, rules, regulations that we have to adhere to. But at the same time, if it's something that is, because we have, as Americans, we have a basis of rights, right? And so once those rights start getting diminished and the application to go against those rights falls on the officer, right? So who do we trust?
Yeah, exactly.
As the citizen, who do we trust, right? Because I want to be law-abiding.
Yeah.
But if my rights are being diminished because of these new mandates or policies, right?
And the officer is the enemy.
Correct.
Yeah, and that's a bad spot to be in.
Correct. That's really scary. So if all of a sudden officers come over here and barge in, right, you have to close. What do I do?
Yeah, exactly. And dude, in my heart of hearts, I felt like, if officers keep going out there and trying to enforce these mayor's edicts and these governor's mandates, people are going to start killing cops. Yeah. That's what I thought was going to happen. I was like, there's no way people are just going to, we saw all the videos of moms getting arrested at parks or people getting arrested for singing, like all this bizarre.
Surfing.
Well, that's the worst one. 2 police boats, chasing that dude down. And it's like, dude, I have a boat just like that, my personal boat. Dude, it burns 29 gallons an hour. You know what I'm saying? Think about the manpower and the resources
for one dude
that are being used, not only for one dude, but for one dude that did what? That did nothing. Yeah. And you're so concerned about him getting sick that you put your hands on him and you
With no masks.
and you take him to and put him in a cage. Like, what are we fucking talking about here? And again, every cop I know thought it was just outrageous, the shit that was happening, but they keep doing it. So why are they doing it? You know what I mean?
Some are doing it. And that's the thing about it is like, as you know, I mean, you start looking around and many officers out there were like, no, this is silly. This is silly shit, right? And so, you know, many restaurants, many other stores and stuff like that, they kept open and somewhat weren't bothered. But the two situations where I think that the state really tried to implement their mandates was through either LNI or the health department, right? So those were the two bureaucracies that were kind of like hand in hand trying to like slap down anybody that was getting outside of the mandates.
Yep, very true.
Which was tragic because who would have thought that, you know what I mean, that these two entities would be, closing down shops of citizens that are trying to just stay alive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so who do we go to when that happens? How does that happen? You know what I mean? Like I'm you talk about these guys that had gyms over in the East Coast, thousands and thousands of dollars worth of fines, right? Or barbers that were, thousands of dollars of fines, right? Where does it end? And right now we're pulling away from it. Trump's out of the office,
exactly.
Right?
The plan worked.
What's going to happen now to those people that got fined, right? Or that got closed, right?
I think as this stuff gets litigated, I think most of those charges and most of those fines will be dropped because I don't think they have a leg to stand on. Like, there's no laws on the books, right? I know like governors can enact like state of emergency, but if you read the law on it, at least in Washington state,
it has to go back to the legislation.
It has to go to legislation after 30 days.
Correct.
And it didn't. Correct. So so if you look at
these,
the law,
so I'll ask you, are these empty mandates that he put forth?
Well, I mean, that's up for discussion because everything, I mean, even at the Supreme Court, the most educated, most competent people and the scholarly people in law will disagree on things, right? But how I look at it and how I read it personally, absolutely, he was putting forth illegal mandates. Like, because here's the thing, there's case law that goes back to 1803. I think it was Marbury versus Madison. It said any governor, any mandate or any law that violates people's constitutional rights is null and void. Therefore, it doesn't matter what Inslee wants to promote. If it violates somebody's constitutional rights, it cannot exist.
Correct.
That supersedes it automatically.
Did he put it as an emergency mandate or?
Yeah.
Okay,
he invoked that. Yep.
Well, and it's only supposed to last for 30 days.
Right?
And then after that, he didn't.
No, he just kept re-invoking it. Okay. So, I mean, I guess that's where it comes up for discretion, right? Like, well, it says that it's good for 30 days and then it has to be legislated. So can he just keep re-invoking it? Because, I mean, at what point does it become just absolutely blatantly against people's constitutional rights? Well, it's a fucking year.
So what do all these business owners and all these restaurants and mom and pop shops, what do they do now that they've gone bankrupt? They're closed. Can they get some?
I know a lot of people are filing lawsuits, but who knows? I mean, fuck, dude. How long is that kind of stuff? Litigation on that kind of stuff could be another year or two.
Correct.
So their business is closed and they're not earning an income. Congratulations, I'm going to sue the government and may get some type of compensation in 2 years. What's that going to do for them right now, though?
Correct.
Not much, Yeah, I don't. That's why again, it's shocking to me that so many people willingly close their business down because it's like, okay, I could close my business down and lose everything I had, or I can fight for it and buck the system. And maybe I'll lose it, but maybe I won't. Correct. It seems like a pretty obvious choice, but they scared the shit out of everybody so bad that
it's interesting because for me, I was nervous one of the police coming through here, right? And then I thought, I was like, the police are not going to come through here. It's going to be something else. And that's when I found out.
It was LNI.
It was LNI that they're going to get you through, or health department. I'm not a restaurant, so health department didn't count. So I basically fired everybody, right? So you know what I mean. So they really couldn't say, okay, you have employees here that they're in detriment.
Well, and I think that is one thing that helped us out. There's a couple things that I think made it to where they couldn't come after me. Is I don't have any employees on the books. Yeah. I have assistant coaches, but you know how that goes.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have any employees on the books. And then the other thing is I'm on private property. I'm not on commercial property.
Oh, bless your heart. That's awesome.
And you can run under Washington State law. You can run fitness facilities on private property because a lot of people like teach yoga out of their garage or whatever, you know?
Correct.
And so they've determined that can be, you can run like a commercial enterprise out on private property if it relates to like health and wellness. And so I think perhaps that was another reason why nobody ever came and poked their nose around. But I mean, we're fortunate that the law enforcement officers in Washington State never started to like promote the governor's mandates. Dude, California, New Jersey.
Where you're at in Snohomish County, bless their heart. They're awesome.
Oh, yeah.
They're amazing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In that way, because they were like, no, that's
Adam
sheriff.
Fortney said, he goes, we're not doing any of this stuff. But dude, because again, he did something similar to me. He took a public stand and they're hammering him. You know, they're trying to get him fired.
No.
Yeah, he's fighting it. It's funny you brought him up. I actually invited him on the podcast to tell his story.
Oh, please do.
He said he'll come on once all the
things have settled a little bit.
Everything settles because they're going after him. And it's
who's that's the thing. Who's going after him?
I don't know. They started a petition and got the signatures to have his position recalled. And again, they're using well, if he's not willing to enforce it, he's not keeping people safe, like all that kind of stuff, you know? But good on him, because now that this is kind of blown over, it never became an issue.
Correct.
You know, and it sounds like he's going to take the heat, but that's leadership 101. You should take the heat for your men and your women, you know?
Yeah. And it's amazing because Snohomish did so much better than King County. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In that aspect
exactly.
You know what I mean? So, and I'm very curious to know more about how your private property gym is doing that, because I'm in that direction.
Yeah.
I want to move out a little bit and get a little property and put myself in.
Dude, you should come check it out sometime.
Absolutely.
I put up a 3,000 square foot pole building and put 2 stories in it. And it's
perfect. So you got 6,000 square feet basically.
Well, the mat room is it's half of the building. The upstairs, the second floor is only half of the building, you know? But no, yeah, you don't have to fucking
4,500 square feet basically.
Don't
Good
have
for
to
you.
deal.
That's exactly what I got here.
Okay.
So,
and I don't pay rent to anyone. You know what I mean? Like, and between CrossFit and Jiu-Jitsu, we're pushing 300 members now.
Lovely.
And again, it's like, I feel like courage is rewarded, because we got so many people over the last 6 months because their Pilates was closed, their yoga was closed,
Correct.
their Globo gym was closed. And okay, well, this place is open. Let's go check it out. And now they've bought off on what we're selling, and now they're digging it, you know? And so it's really awesome to see.
Yeah. No, I had the same thing here. You know, I was, you know, all these different jiu-jitsu gyms that adhere to the mandate and close down. I had a lot of their little black belts and a lot of their brown belts coming over here and rolling. Coach, please don't tell anybody. Right? And I'm like, yeah, brother.
Bro, I had the same thing. I had people driving up from all over the place. Yeah. And I told them too, like, I don't give a fuck if you're Gracie Baja. I don't care if you're Marcelo Alonso, like Cascade. I'm not trying to poach anyone, right? Like,
correct.
I cause no drama in the jiu-jitsu community. I get along with everybody. But if your gym's closed and you want to be part of this gym,
come roll.
While we're going through this, let's roll. Yeah. And then I've had some people like, dude, I'm staying here. And I was like, fuck, dude. Like, I even said, like, I'm not trying to poach, but at the end of the day, you got to do what's right for you. Yeah. And I had one guy tell me that. He goes, hey, I'm a fucking adult and I spend my money where I want, and I like this gym, and this is my new home. Cool. I'm like, yeah, cool. Man.
It is what it is. Yeah. Now, I'm very thankful, because a lot of the guys from, you know, Marcelo, especially down south, the Five, the Puyallup, and other areas in the Northwest, we kind of like had the same thought. Let's just keep the fucker open. Yeah. Right? Let's keep it rolling. You know, people need this. They want this, right? Just give them the warnings.
Yep.
Right? The regular warnings, be an adult. You know what I mean? If you got somebody that's, at risk, don't be here. It's cool, right? You know
and if you're sick, stay home. Guess what? We've been saying that at jiu-jitsu practice since the beginning of time. Correct. I don't want all your funk on me. If you got ringworm, or you got staph, or you got a cold, fucking stay home, clean yourself up, and then let's train.
Correct.
It's no different than ever.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
So, Well, fuck, man. We've been at it 2.5 hours. That's about when I like to wrap these up.
Yeah.
So I'll give you the final thoughts. I always ask my guests to let people know where you're at, how they can get a hold of you, how they can start training under you if they're local, and all that good stuff, man.
Well, thank you, brother. I really appreciate you having me on, and yeah, it was a great conversation. I appreciate it.
It was
very
fun,
much.
man.
Yeah, you can come over. I'm downtown Seattle. I'm on 8th and Thomas. We run all kinds of programs in my mixed martial arts program. We have boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai. We have judo, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, submission wrestling, and obviously the MMA program. Just look us up, and we'll get you going at any time. Basically, we have morning classes, afternoon classes. So come on through.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate your time, and I can already tell you we're going to have to do this again sometime.
Absolutely.
All right,
Thank you so
brother.
much.